Oh, man, it's 10:15 on a Saturday night, and I was listening to the Cure in the kitchen, making myself a much needed cup of tea. I've just watched the relay film that I really enjoyed with the missus, and we're sitting there, and to be fair, we've knocked back a bottle of Pinot Noir each, and I promised I'd do that after my massive behemoth live stream about ice that was really I think one of my most important videos I've done in goodness knows how long. Really information dense video where my brain was pretty exhausted afterwards. Over 2 hours of talking to you guys nonstop. And I thought, right, I need to relax tonight. I can't do much more of this. And then, you just like, oh, well, there's an advert on Amazon Prime. I'm just going to look at my phone and, oh, right. Okay. So I turned to my missus. I was like, you do realize I've got to talk about this. I have to talk about this. This is so important. And indeed it is. Look, if I struggle to make coherent sense tonight, I do apologize. I've had too much Pinot Noir, but I'm trying to mitigate that with tea. But my goodness, guys, I don't want to be talking to you this much. I don't want to feel the need to have to express my concern about the future of the globe, right? But we live in a crazy time where I have to do this, and I just like bring on the midterms. Somebody like anyway, as I'm sure most of you know, that's why you've tuned in, if indeed you are still awake or wanting to listen to what I have to say. We have this situation where Donald Trump is waging economic war with Europe over Greenland, over rank imperialism, and it is it's just a crazy timeline to be living in. Look, let's talk about what's going on. I'm going to refer you first of all to Derek Tanis here, who is a great Romanian actually source to check out if you want to follow anyone on Twitter. I mean, he's as good as any. But
drops the thing, walks off the stage crying. Her mother's crying, but she gets it.
Anyway, today, out of sheer stupidity and malice, and without any discernible gain from it, the clinically insane president of the US, twice elected by 77 million people, has put an end to NATO and to the century-old network of alliances that the US has built around the globe. And I thought that's pretty much as good an introduction to what has taken place tonight as I could think of. Okay, so we have Donald Trump saying the following. So I'm going to read this to you in full because this is the stimulus for tonight's discussion. We have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration. That opening sentence is such abject nonsense that I don't even want to credit it with a response. It's just simply rubbish. You don't understand tariffs and trade deficits, and you just don't understand economics. So we'll just leave that for now. Now, he says, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. What? We could look at any country around the world that has any other territory in the world, and what are you talking about? Give back to whom? About, okay. World peace is at stake. No, it's not. China and Russia want Greenland. Yeah, maybe. And there is not a thing that Denmark can do about it. Yes, there is. There's Article 5 of NATO. You don't know what you are talking about. You are such a fool. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. No, they have a bit more of that, such as, I don't know, NATO. There's a US base on there where there used to be 18, by the way, but now there's only one. That's up to you. Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump, all caps, can play in this game. This is not a game. This is very serious. And very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. Okay, just to explain that, those countries that he has mentioned have committed some forces to Greenland to at least nominally act as further security against the threats of Russia and China that he has just mentioned, right? So if he's genuinely worried about Russia and China, these forces have gone to Greenland to say, hey, what's the situation? We hear that Donald Trump is really worried about China and Russia and the security here. So we're going to send some troops, do a little bit, not many, by the way, just a few. I think the UK has only sent one person, right? The idea is that, hey, we're going to just do some recce, find out what's going on, and then commit greater troops and resources here if we find that there's a need for that. But do you know what? NATO hasn't really found a need for that before. So, anyway, that's what we're doing. And that's what the US wants, right? They want, the US wants greater security in Greenland. That's what Trump has just been whinging about for the last few days. Of course, those countries were really, let's face it, worried more about what the United States was doing. And that's how Donald Trump has taken it. He says, this is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. Do you know what? No one was worrying about Greenland. Ukraine is a much bigger and kinetic and open battlefront that is a concern for the planet right now, and you have abdicated responsibility from sorting that out in any meaningful and moral and strategic way. So Greenland is your hill to die on, is it? Okay. These countries, he says, who are playing this very dangerous game have put a high level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that, in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Starting on February the 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We'll come back to this because he doesn't seem to understand the EU. But anyway, on June the 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. Sorry. This tariff will be due and payable until such a time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome, the modern-day weapons systems, both offensive and defensive, and the need to acquire, all caps, is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the dome, including for the possible protection of Canada. This is very brilliant, but highly complex system, can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles, meets, and bounds if this land is included in it. The United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and or any of these countries that have put so much at risk, despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over so many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Blah, 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 blah. Egypt of the United States. Right. as Peter Kruger says, he's losing it, completely freaking out because there's massive pushback in the US against this Greenland madness, even by significant MAGA sections. Europe is going to win this one. Europe is the only true resistance. Okay, quite bombastic there, but there's some truth to the fact that actually his position on Greenland is not popular amongst the American population, including really deep into the MAGA base. I mean, it's more popular with MAGA than, say, with Democrats and independents, but it's not widely popular, this. He is doubling down on this. And it goes back to, you know, what's really the agenda here. And I refer you back to my previous video, my previous live, where it was super important, that video where I talked about joining the dots, talking about big tech and oligarchs that are particularly interested in Greenland. I think they are pulling the strings here with regard to what Trump is well, several things are going on here. I think Trump is trying to achieve things that fit to his own psychological agenda, and he's kind of admitted this before. I think there's a sense of ego, a sense of legacy, a sense of feeling like he's an emperor, etc., etc. I also think there are people around him that are whispering things in his ears and are trying to pull his strings, and successfully so. And I think the tech oligarchs are behind much of his approach to Greenland, so on and so forth. Right. Representative Don Bacon here says, Congress must reclaim authorities. There's a reason James Madison put tariff authorities under Article 1. So we have this situation at the moment. Before we look at international replies to what Trump has said, it must be pointed out that what he is doing with regard to tariffs, and irrespective of this particular escapade into trying to start a fight with Europe, all of his tariffs have been called into question because he does not have the authority to unilaterally decide on tariff policy. That is up to Congress. And so the Supreme Court is just deciding this, but it has put off its decision kind of inexplicably so. But, you know, whatever. The Supreme Court is supposed to be deciding on tariffs, supposed to have decided on tariffs this week. It is due to come in now. I wonder whether he's just throwing this out there before there's a decision that says you cannot make these decisions yourself unilaterally, and they repeal all tariffs. Or this is just another, possibly another reason that the Supreme Court should decide against him doing stuff like this, because it's super dangerous. This is economic warfare with allies. Okay. There are all sorts of, there's so much going on in my head at the moment with regard to what's going on, what's the agenda here, how does this play out, what does the Supreme Court do? I mean, the Supreme Court, which is stacked 6-3 conservative to liberal, is ideologically aligned with Trump far more than with not Trump. But at some point, they have to come to their senses and go, yeah, this is a little too far. We might need to have a little chat about this, and we might need to keep Trump in check. They have every reason to keep him in check right now. They really, really do. Justin Wolfers, the economist, says a new tariff has just dropped. Americans are set to pay an additional 10%. He's looking at this from an economic point of view, saying, tariffs are a tax on the US consumer if there are US tariffs, and this is an additional 10% tax on all goods from Germany, UK, France, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. It starts in 2 weeks, rising to 25% by June. But he says, brackets aside, a trade war with one EU member is a trade war with the whole of the EU. And I just have to point out this idea that Donald Trump appears not to understand how the EU works. It makes me wonder who wrote this Truth Social post. Was it Trump? Was it someone else? Either way, there is an abject ignorance here taking place, because you cannot when you have a customs union and a single market, you cannot single out individual countries and say we are going to tariff them, because a tariff on one country is a tariff on all countries in the EU. Yes, Norway. Yes, UK. We are different. We are slightly, I mean, Norway has a slightly hybrid relationship with the EU. The UK is out the EU ostensibly completely. So yeah, okay, tariff on us two, cool or not cool. But a tariff on the Netherlands and Germany is a tariff on Spain, Portugal, Poland, etc., because they're in the EU. The fact that you are isolating those individual countries, either you are trying to pit them against the EU, very plausible, or you just don't understand how the EU works. Actually, more plausible as far as I'm concerned. So Yaroslav Trofimov says, by the way, you can't have tariffs on individual EU nations. So it is a new trade war on the entirety of the EU. He has just picked a fight with the EU plus the UK plus Norway. Piers Morgan, if you don't have Piers Morgan on your side, you are in an odd place if you are MAGA Trump world. You have lost Piers Morgan. Interesting barometer. Britain should repurchase America, he says, tongue-in-cheek. After all, it was ours once. This is the idea that the US is demanding to be able to purchase Greenland. And by the way, there are large-scale Greenlandic protests going on in Greenland against Trump and against America. This is not popular in Greenland. After all, says Wolfers, it was once ours. Says Piers Morgan, it was once ours, and it would enhance our North American security. If you don't sell it to us, President Trump, you're going to impose tariffs. We are going to impose tariffs on the US and any country who supports you in resisting this very good deal. Fair? So he's tongue-in-cheek putting that back to the United States. You have lost, Piers Morgan. Anyway, let's go and look at what international leaders have said in reply to this. We're going to start with, because I'm British, Keir Starmer. And Keir Starmer, thankfully, has come out robustly against this. Our position on Greenland is very clear. It is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. We're also made clear that Arctic security matters for the whole of NATO, and allies should all do more together to address the threat from Russia across different parts of the Arctic. Applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration. So he has come out and said it is completely wrong, and we're going to obviously be speaking to US administration. Say no more at the moment. So I like the fact that he said this is completely wrong. So the absolute minimum is Trump done wrong, rather than okay, this is unfortunate. We'll be talking. Yeah, no, this is completely wrong. We're going to have a chat. Okay, so that's the UK response as it stands at the moment. Actually, it goes further than that. Interestingly, here we have Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader, who clamours to differentiate herself from Labour, obviously, and sides much more likely with Trump than with kind of not Trump. She's interesting position of the Conservative Party in the UK. Does it chase the reform vote? Does it try and be Nigel Farage's Reform 2.0, like a Conservative light version? Here, she's like, no, a terrible idea. President Trump is completely wrong to announce tariffs on the UK over Greenland. People in both the UK and the US will face high costs. These tariffs will be yet another burden for businesses across our country. The sovereignty of Greenland should only be decided by the people of Greenland. Yes, good to see our opposition on the same page. And in fact, Nigel Farage has come out, condemned Donald Trump's tariffs on European countries, warning it will hurt us. Quote, we don't always agree with the US government, and in this case, we certainly don't. These tariffs will hurt us. If Greenland is vulnerable to malign influences, then have another look at Diego Garcia. So bringing in the sort of Chagos Islands and whatnot. Farage's post referred to the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, the ceding cession of the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. But anyway, he is not a fan either. So, you know, in the UK, at least, we have kind of universal condemnation across the political fault lines as to Trump's positioning here. Okay, so that's Britain broadly done. Repudiation of the Trump position. Paul Mason, a Labourite, says, I assume that means, so Trump announces a plan to hit the UK, Denmark, and other European countries with extra tariffs. I assume that means a trade deal with America is dead. I keep saying it, but the UK's future is with Europe. Activate the JEF HQ permanently and borrow like crazy to arm ourselves for the defense of Europe against Russia. America does not want to act like a reliable ally. So you are seeing a justification for the UK to get closer to Europe as opposed to closer to the US and eschew Europe. So what Donald Trump is successfully doing here at the moment is uniting Europe, at the very least. And it looks like the the UK US deal is probably off. And as we'll come to see, the EU US trade deal is off too. This is huge. This is really genuinely huge. French President Emmanuel Macron has fired back at Trump as well. No intimidation nor threat will influence us, neither in Ukraine nor in Greenland nor anywhere else in the world. Now, France is often happy to pit themselves against the United States, but here we have just further robust repudiation of Trump's positioning. Macron says, translation, France is committed to the sovereignty and independence of nations in Europe as elsewhere. This guides our choices. It underpins our attachment to the United Nations and to our charter. It is on this basis that we support and will continue to support Ukraine. Nice that that's brought into play here, and that we have built a coalition of the willing for a robust and lasting peace to defend these principles and our security. It is also on this basis that we have decided to join the exercise decided by Denmark in Greenland. We stand by this decision, especially because it concerns security in the Arctic and at the frontiers of our Europe. No intimidation nor threat will influence us, neither in Ukraine nor in Greenland, nor anywhere else in the world when we are confronted with such situations. Tariff threats are unacceptable and have no place in this context. Europeans will respond to them in a united and coordinated manner if they were to be confirmed. We will know how to uphold European sovereignty. It is in this spirit that I will speak to with our European partners. Now you can see a far more robust response here than any of the British answers to what Trump has done. And like I've told you before, without wanting to justify or at least agree with British mealy-mouthed kind of, not feeling too strong about standing up to the United States. That is because we do not have the security blanket of the EU. So EU nations can literally afford to stand up to the United States more than the UK can. And that is our weakness. Now, we can criticize Keir Starmer for being, I think, underwhelming in his response, although he is saying it's completely wrong. And that goes for actually Nigel Farage and Cami Badenoch. They are responding as I would expect them to respond. All of those three are being condemning of the United States without going too crazy. Emmanuel Macron here is saying what I would like Keir Starmer to say, but Keir Starmer is less able to say that because we just don't have the security blanket. But it will more likely push the UK towards the EU, and probably you will see a more EU supportive positioning from Keir Starmer, I would imagine, going forward. He's probably trying to put his feelers out, work out where to stand at the moment. I mean, the big question at the moment is whether Trump is going to be Taco. So we know that Trump has pretty much backed out of everything that has been of consequence since he came to power. When he puts himself up against Xi Jinping, Russia particularly, or anyone else around the world, he talks a big talk. And then when it comes to realizing how this will cost the American economy, he backs down. So you've got Taco. You've got Trump being Taco. Trump always chickens out. So the question here is he's giving you a time frame, 10% in just a couple of weeks, and then 25% unless you just give up Greenland. And if Europe go, actually, no, we're not going to do that, and we are going to, I don't know, tariff US services, Google, Microsoft, Amazon. That will be super painful for the EU, by the way. Super painful for the UK if we were involved. It will hurt. Like no one wins. No one wins from this. This is Donald Trump shooting himself in the foot and shooting everyone else in the foot. Like the only people who win from this are Russia and China, Brazil, BRICS, anyone else that's not the US and its allies. This is the US giving up on NATO and giving up on alliances. This is Trump just going, yeah, I've had enough of friends. Do you know what? Friends really piss me off. Do you know who I like? Bastards. I like total bastards. You know Putin? You know Putin, don't you? I like him. Do you know Kim Jong-un? You know when he speaks, they all stand up. They all stand up with a straight back. I want my people to do that. I like Kim Jong-un. I liked it when Bolsonaro's in. I like that Viktor Orban. He's a nice guy. Xi Jinping, he's all right. He's all right. He's got, I don't mess around with him. I like those people. Europeans, democracies, democratically elected leaders, they're all knobbers. Don't like them. Don't care for them one iota. I like dictatorial, genocidal bastards. That's who I like, because I secretly want to be that powerful, and I secretly want to commit my own genocide. I think that's what I want to do, guys. I've got Stephen Miller here. He's telling me that'd be great. He wants to do it with all the brown-skinned people in the US. He's well up for that, aren't you, Stephen? You like that? Yeah, Stephen likes that. Anyway, I digress. So where was I? We were talking about Emmanuel Macron. So Emmanuel Macron can afford more easily to be far more robust than, say, the British leader. And that is great. And he has absolutely freaking nailed that. And I love the way he's brought Ukraine into it as well. I'd love Keir Starmer to have enough backbone to back himself, to back the UK, to speak in Macron terms there. Danish politician Pelle Dragsted says Trump's tariff punishment against Denmark and several other European countries must be met with European solidarity and resistance. Trump must not be allowed to divide us. The EU must respond collectively and firmly, go hard after the tech oligarchs. You are going to see that this is going to be, I think, the crux. Honestly, it's all about the tech. It's all about the tech. In Trump's inner circle, enough is enough. Germany's now, this is where you get a sense that people right across the European political landscape are peed off with Donald Trump. When you have lost Piers Morgan, Nigel Farage, and now the AfD in Germany, I think you probably are barking up the wrong tree. Cold tea. Germany's far-right AfD breaks with Trump over Greenland threats. Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany, the AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, has publicly criticized US President Donald Trump over his renewed push to bring Greenland under US control. A striking turn for a party that has spent the past year flirting with Trump's MAGA ecosystem. AfD co-leader Alice Weidel said Trump's rhetoric contradicts his earlier promises about avoiding foreign interference, while co-leader Tino Tripala denounced what he called Wild West methods, signaling unease with the idea that power politics can override sovereignty even among allies. The backlash comes as Trump has escalated pressure on Denmark and Greenland with a mix of coercive language and economic threats, including talk of tariffs against countries that refuse to go along with US plans, while also declining to rule out the use of force. Denmark and Greenland have repeatedly rejected any notion of a takeover, calling the threats reckless and insisting that security issues in the Arctic should be handled among allies, not through intimidation. Across Europe, the episode has triggered a wave of solidarity with Denmark and visible public protest. On Saturday, demonstrators marched in Copenhagen and other locations under slogans such as "Greenland is not for sale," highlighting how politically toxic the issue has become on the continent. Meanwhile, a bipartisan US congressional delegation has tried to cool tensions by stressing alliance ties and respect for Danish and Greenlandic sovereignty, even as the White House rhetoric keeps the crisis alive. I think there's a bipartisan group that went to Greenland today, or was it Denmark? Anyway, you had Chris Coons, Democrat, you had Lisa Murkowski was in there. I'm trying to recognize the others in the kind of lineup. But yeah, so they are worried, I think, American politicians. We'll come to that a little bit later. Let us go to our best friend, Stephen Hitler Miller.
Well,
so
you said it, Sean.
See what he has to say about all of this. This isn't from tonight, but this gives you a sense of what he believes about Greenland. So this is the ideology coming from the guy that's really running the White House.
Well, you said it, Sean. Greenland is essential for America's national security. The new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. That is where more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals, is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic regions. Greenland is 25% larger than Alaska. Greenland is the size of 1/4 of the continental United States. With respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military. They cannot defend Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland.
They can defend Greenland and they can control the territories. You know why? Because they're part of NATO. That's the entire point of NATO. So, by the way, everything that Stephen Miller here says is absolute nonsense. So literally everything he says is complete BS. Not one single claim merits me nodding my head in agreement. But you don't need Denmark to be a behemoth militarily. Because, do you know what? That's why NATO exists. NATO exists precisely so that Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland, and the UK, and France, and the Netherlands, and Belgium, and the United States, we're all for one and one for all. Greenland is defended not by Denmark. Greenland is defended by NATO. And NATO has access to Greenland, and the US has access to Greenland in a way that fulfills its defensive needs. Without you having to pay, as the United States, for, I don't know, all of the welfare for Greenlanders, for X, Y, and Z, to even buy it off Denmark or to run it on a yearly basis. You don't have to do that. You can functionally achieve what you want in terms of mining, in terms of military defense of Greenland, without having to own it.
With respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military.
NATO.
They cannot defend
NATO.
Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland.
NATO.
Under every understanding
No.
of law that has
No.
existed about territorial control for 500 years, to control a territory, you have to be able to defend a territory.
So, like, this is worthy of unpicking, right? Honestly, you could listen to, imagine you're some kind of MAGA supporter that you're like, everything that Stephen Miller says is awesome, everything that Trump says is awesome, is brilliant. And I'm listening to Stephen here, and this sounds really, really clever. I like the way that he's very assertive. I like the way he's confident in what he says, and that he's backing up with a really good rationale. Except he's not. Except none of what he says makes sense. So listen to his claim about international law 500 years. International law didn't exist more than 100 years ago, realistically. Until you had sort of Geneva Convention, the United Nations, international law was not a thing. So straight away, what he's saying just makes no sense.
The territory of Greenland, under every understanding of law that has existed about territorial control for 500 years.
It hasn't existed for 500 years. So so everything you say from now on that's contingent upon that premise is absolute nonsense, because international law has not existed for 500 years. just honestly, like, do not be bamboozled by people that appear to know what they're talking about because they're on TV, because they are confident, because they use big words, right? This guy is a dipshit, right? He hasn't got the first clue about that which he talks. Do not be sucked in by a confident fascist.
To control the territory of Greenland under every understanding of law that has existed about territorial control for 500 years. To control a territory, you have to be able to defend a territory, improve a territory.
Nothing to do with international law. So this is nothing like you have to be able to control the territory, defend a territory. No, that's nothing to do with international law. That's to do with if you want a big empire where no one else takes a piece of your empire, then you have to be able to control the territory and defend the territory against other people that want a piece of your empire. What he's talking about is nothing to do with international law. It's everything to do with being an emperor. And what I'd like is for Tommy Lahren, or no, it's not, Sean Hannity. What I'd like is for Sean Hannity to go, hang on, Stephen here. Hang on, Stephen. Sorry, mate. That's bullshit. Like, stop. Let's pass this. Let's go back, rewind, just start this again, and let's take this kind of idea by idea. But of course, Sean Hannity is not interested in truth. He's not interested in holding, an enlightened, burning flame to authoritarianism. He's just like, yes, sir. Okay, 3 bags full, sir. Yeah.
Inhabit a territory. Denmark.
So it's international law that we have to inhabit a territory, is it? 500 years of international law that we have to control, defend, and inhabit a territory. What are you talking about, you gargantuan dimwit?
Able to defend a territory, improve a territory, inhabit a territory.
No.
Denmark has failed on every single one of these tests.
Those aren't tests. No one has said that as a test. You are such an idiot. There is no test for inhabiting an area as part of international law. Honestly, somebody challenge this git. Do it. Sean Hannity, you are not worth anything if you're just going to sit by and listen to this idiocy.
A territory, inhabit a territory. Denmark has failed on every single one of these tests. So they want us to spend hundreds of billions of dollars defend.
No, they don't want you to do that. No one's asking you to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. You just are part of NATO. You have your NATO alliance obligations. You do what NATO does. And together, as all those 30-odd countries in NATO, you help defend NATO territories, which includes Greenland. And we can all do that. And do you know what? The US said, hey, we need to do more to defend NATO, to defend Greenland. Can you guys do that? Can you guys do that? Can you guys do that? We'd probably go, yeah, all right. Yeah, we're all right. Should we put some more people on? Should we put some planes on Greenland? Should we more people? Some more bases? Yeah. I mean, you reduced your presence on Greenland by 17 bases. You had 18 bases, Stephen Miller, and now you have 1 base. So who's the one that's giving up on Greenland? Who's the one that really doesn't care for Greenland? That'll be you.
A territory for them that is 25% bigger than Alaska at 100% American expense. But they say, well, we do this
100% American expense. So NATO has nothing to do with Greenland. So Denmark does nothing with regard to Greenland. 100% the expense of Greenland, defending Greenland, is American. No, that's clearly, demonstrably false.
It belongs 100% to Denmark. It's a raw deal. It's an unfair deal. And most importantly, it's unfair to the American taxpayer, who have subsidized all of Europe's defense for generations now.
Let's just honestly, let's take people seriously in what they say. Like, he's ranting here, but he is saying that the United States has subsidized European defense 100%, which is 100% incorrect.
It's a raw deal. It's an unfair deal. And most importantly, it's unfair to the American taxpayer, who have subsidized all of Europe's defense for generations now.
You've subsidized all of European defense for generations now. This is the guy that whispers in Trump's ear. Trump's doing all the stuff with Greenland. It is a case that he is just fulfilling the wildest fantasies of the oligarchs and Stephen Miller. You put those two entities together and you have Trump. That is what Trump is doing. Stephen Miller is horrendously evil, but it is he who is running the White House.
American dollars, American treasure, American blood, American ingenuity is what keeps Europe safe and the free world safe. And Donald Trump's insisting that we be respected, Sean.
Greg Terry is in the live chat. Gregory, if you want to come on to this live chat, I will send you the link. You are welcome to, but if you're busy, don't worry about it. I will put the link in your WhatsApp, mate. If you want to join in, I'm here for you. Right. Anywho, let us move on, though. We're going to go to the Swedish response to this. So, Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson's response to today's threats of tariffs by Trump over Greenland. Quote, "We will not let ourselves be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland decide on issues concerning Denmark and Greenland. I will always stand up for my country and for our allied neighbors. This is an EU issue that affects many more countries than those now being singled out. Sweden is now having intensive discussions with other EU countries, Norway and the United Kingdom, for a coordinated response." Good to have the UK added into that coordinated response. And that is a really strong, some have said a scathing response by Sweden. So that's really good to hear. Now, Trump announces this 10% tariff on European nations. So just to be clear, says John Sopel, was the former BBC US correspondent, says Britain and other EU countries being hit with additional tariffs for not supporting the illegal annexation of Danish sovereignty territory. This is extraordinary. I've heard this be phrased in terms of NATO being sanctioned by the US for not committing suicide. So in order for NATO to give up Greenland to the US, that would be like the end of NATO. It's like, well, NATO means nothing because we can be threatened and attacked and coerced from within by the United States. And if we don't stand up to that, then what is NATO? So NATO just falls apart. So if you give Greenland to the US, either by attacking a NATO neighbor or NATO ally or by coercing a NATO ally, then that's the end of NATO. So we're being sanctioned. NATO is being sanctioned by the US for not allowing NATO to cease to exist. That is extraordinary. Right. Anyway, just to, if Greg Terry didn't hear that, I have sent out a WhatsApp message to you if you did want to take part. So Alistair Campbell, I love a bit of Alistair Campbell these days. He is a former Blairite in the Blair administration, now does the rest of his politics with Rory Stewart. It's a great podcast, well worth listening to. He says, "This has to be the overreach moment when Europe stops pretending this guy is normal or can be dealt with normally, and they get their act together and fight back. He is an enemy over Ukraine and an enemy over a NATO country, Denmark, whose defense of Greenland has been weakened not by them, but by the USA. He is a narcissist who cares only for himself and his fellow grifters and cultists, and his deeply fragile ego. He is a bully who will respect nobody and nothing that fails to stand up to him. I have many American friends, and I'm deeply sorry it has got to this, but while he is leader, and it is not a place we can support in any way. And given the chaos he is causing home and abroad, it might be about time that the MBF at FIFA, Infantino, thought about shifting the World Cup to a country that wants people to feel welcome, among the many who could step in. But for now, he just needs to be told, do one, Donny, just do one." There's an interesting thing about the World Cup, actually, because Germany have been hinting, or there have been hints coming from Germany, that they might boycott the World Cup, which is one of the greatest footballing nations in the world, saying we won't turn up to the World Cup. Now, that would be really harsh for the footballers involved, But if they did that, you will have other nations following. And I wasn't taking that seriously this morning because it's more to do with ICE and just international geopolitics that was pretty fractious. But actually, now, if the US is going to go to town on the EU, and also you've got Canada up there. So interestingly, Canada is just Mark Carney, the Premier of Prime Minister of Canada, has just gone to China, and they've done this deal. And electric vehicles tariffs have just evaporated. That's to allow Chinese electric vehicles into Canada, and of course that is in stark contrast to Tesla's situation coming up from the US into Canada. This is Canada pivoting towards China. And what the US is doing right now with the EU will push the EU towards China. China is laughing. Whether you like China or not, they are demonstrably more reliable than the United States of America at the present time. Now, if you are a US citizen at the moment, you're listening to this and you love the US and you love your country and you're a true patriot, and you don't like me, for example, as some rando sitting here denigrating the US. I'm not. I'm denigrating Trump and his administration. You've got this weird situation where you have to grapple with, where the world outside of the US is thinking, maybe China are better mates than the United States. Now, if you've got to a state of play where that is the case, something has gone deeply wrong. There's something rotten. I would say, to quote Shakespeare, something is rotten in the state of Denmark. But how ironic that is, that, to quote Hamlet, something is rotten in the state of the United States, where people are being pushed towards thinking that China is a more reliable ally, a more reliable trading partner than the United States. And if you were to ask China and Russia and BRICS what their Christmas present for 2026 would be, it would be this. Donald Trump is doing more to shift the US hegemonic, so the supreme power of the US state of affairs, away to a multi-polarized world, which is exactly what China and Russia have been asking for and striving for decades. Donald Trump has just handed on a platter to China global hegemony. There you go. If you are an American China hawk, so if you're someone like Elbridge Colby sitting in the Trump administration, and you're thinking, yeah, I freaking love Trump. Trump's awesome. Trump. Oh, love him. Oh, he's gone and done this. Oh, actually, yeah, screw you, Europe. Hate you, Europe. Yeah. Oh, Europe have got together with China. Oh, Canada have got together with China. Oh, but who are our mates? Who are our friends? What about Mexico? Oh no, yeah. What about Argentina? There's Argentina. Qatar? No, they just kicked us out. They said if we strike Iran, then no. Honestly, crazy times. Crazy times. Now, to go back to the UK. Oh, yeah, that's a really good point as well. I talked about this the other day. Mercosur has been signed. So the EU has then signed a massive free trade deal with, it's the biggest free trade deal in the world, arguably. You've got the EU, the biggest trade bloc in the world, doing a deal with these 4 pretty sizable countries in South America for free trade. Meanwhile, the US is whacking tariffs on everyone. Everyone else is getting together and saying, no, we're going to do trade with each other. Thank you very much. So arguably losing South America to an influence, I don't know. It's just crazy. Anyway, going back to the UK just quickly, GB News has this, it's really weird that you've got, it's not weird, but you've got Reform UK. In my opinion, Farage has probably come out and gritting his teeth said, this is wrong for Trump to do this. He doesn't want to say this. He loves a bit of Trump. He loves a bit of pandering to the MAGA world. But, and at the same time, you've got he has shares, Nigel Farage, in GB News, by the way. So it really is Reform UK's megaphone. At the same time, Reform UK comes out and they are slagging off UK and Europe because GB News stands for, I don't know, gits in Britain, like, or something. Like, they hate Britain. They just love a bit of MAGA. These tariffs are a massive slapdown for the globalists from President Trump. Okay, well done. Well done, GB News. Brilliant. President Trump is trying to save the West from itself. I'm not going to play you what GB News says, but all I say to you is if you are someone that watches my channel at all and also watches GB News, please don't watch GB News. Anyway, Senator Patty Murray says, to my Republican colleagues, enough. It's time for the Senate to vote to block these tariffs and to block the use of military force against Greenland. Trump is tearing apart our alliances in real time, and the economic and diplomatic consequences will be catastrophic. Yes, I completely agree. We have Don Bacon. I'm having so much time for Don Bacon these days. He is on point. Here he is on CNN.
Joining us now is Nebraska.
Just to remind you, Nebraska Representative Don Bacon, he's retiring now because he's been critical of Trump over Ukraine, and he found it kind of untenable to remain in his position as a representative of Nebraska. So he's now retiring, or not running again after the midterms in November 2026 this year.
Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. I want to start by getting your reaction to the president's latest comments. What do you think?
Well, maybe the Supreme Court will rule this week or this coming week that tariffs are unconstitutional. I personally believe they should originate from the House. It's the Congress or the legislature responsibility in Article 1 to raise revenues and determine tariffs, not the president. So just on tariffs alone, I disagree with the statement. But to threaten countries who oppose his strange talk on Greenland is also absurd. And I think a lot of the stuff about invading Greenland, he says, I believe it's really being done for negotiating effect. But he says it almost every day. So I feel like people like me and others, we got to speak up and say it's wrong. You don't threaten a NATO ally. They've been a great ally. That we've had bases on there since World War II. Denmark has fought with us by our side in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I feel like it's incumbent on folks like me to speak up and say that these threats and bullying of an ally are wrong. And just on the weird chance that he's serious about invading Greenland, I want to let him know that it would probably be the end of his presidency. Most Republicans know this is immoral and wrong, and we're going to stand up against it.
So this was said. He was interviewed here before the news about the tariffs on Europe, right? So this isn't taking into account Trump's latest outburst, but he's saying, look, there are enough Republicans that would stand up to this, and he's talked about him agreeing to impeach Trump over this. I'm going to add Greg Terry to this. I believe he's doing his own live. So let's just see. Hello, Greg. How are you? Have you just started a live, or are you in the middle of a live?
Give me 1 minute, JP.
Okay, I'll take you out and I'll continue my banging on.
Yep, I'll be there in 30 seconds.
Okay. So I go back to what I was saying. So this is Ocean Defender saying, I thought acquiring Greenland was because Denmark and the Europeans weren't doing enough to protect it from China and Russia. Why is he upset that they are now taking its defense seriously? Or was it never actually about that? So now he's saying there is just a lack of coherence here with regard to Trump's positioning, which is, hey, you're not taking defense seriously enough. So then these allied nations then sent in forces to Greenland, and then Trump punishes them for doing that. Hang on, we just sent forces in because you said we're not taking defense seriously enough. So we've sent forces in, and now Now you're punishing us for doing exactly what you said we weren't doing enough. Like, there is a complete lack of sense to what Donald Trump is doing and saying. Absolutely incredible. So Europe will break all economic ties with the US if it tries to seize Greenland, according to the Financial Times. Now, this came out earlier today. This is before the latest. So the Financial Times said, look, if the US tries to seize Greenland, Europe will break all economic ties. The French finance minister warned his American counterpart that about this. He stressed any step towards seizing the island would be tantamount to crossing a red line. He noted that Europe is deeply concerned about Trump's claims to Greenland. The US views Greenland as a long-term strategic reserve, not as an object of immediate resource extraction, and talks about security. China and Russia are more a convenient cover than the real reason for Washington's interest in the island. Wow. So I guess the question is, how much does Europe have to be able to stand up to the US? Greg, if you're listening, if you want to come in, just shoot me a message back in WhatsApp. Representative Don Bayer here says Trump has no legal authority to tariff American allies to bully them into backing his brainless attempt to seize Greenland. And this goes back to the idea that, do you know what? Supreme Court's going to rule on this, but he does not have congressional authority to unilaterally decide on tariffs. So he can't do this. This is against the law, says Bayer. It's a total disaster for America, and Republicans in Congress and the Supreme Court need to find their spines and stop it. 100%. Now, Alexei Sorokin here says Donald Trump could have done the right thing and picked a fight with the brutal and sadistic Iranian regime that killed thousands. So this idea that the US has stepped back. Trump said that he was going to come to the aid of the Iranians and then kind of bottled it at the last minute. Now, there's another theory to say he's sending in the carrier group and actually that he will really truly be acting on behalf of the Iranians at some point going forward. But it does seem like he capitulated, maybe under pressure from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, who said, look, if you fly attacks into Iran from our air bases or from American bases in our countries, well, we're not going to allow you to do that. And so there might have been pressure there, and the US stopped supporting Iran, which then left these poor Iranian protesters out. You know, you could argue he hung them out to dry after promising to help them. But this source says, hey, Donald Trump could have done the right thing and picked a fight with the brutal and sadistic Iranian regime that killed thousands. He threw Iranian people under the bus and decided to pick a fight with Europeans over Greenland instead. What an absolute idiot. And I don't disagree there. I think that is a very interesting dynamic there, to say the least. Sorry, I was just finishing my thoughts there, Greg. Thanks for coming on. Are you live as well?
Yeah.
Have you been live for longer than this, or have you just started?
No. I'm just joining you, brother.
Okay, so just to your audience, just to let you know that I've already had 1 hour of talking this through. And I've given all of the responses from international leaders, or many of the responses, and my views already. So your guys are coming in halfway through, or most of the way through.
Well, that's fine. The bottom line is I just wanted to jump in here and say that this is absolutely a disaster. And when it comes down to it, I only want to say one thing, because I put a video out on it earlier, and that is the winner of this is Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. And Xi Jinping.
And Xi Jinping. And what's interesting is this comes on within the same 24 hours. Mark Carney was reporting the great statements out of his meeting with Xi Jinping, and we're going to have good relations, new imports of EVs, and bypassing the United States economically. They're directly working with China. So this is going to be I don't know what it's going to be, but I can tell you everything we're seeing right now this is a disaster.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah, so absolutely. So here I had this ready for later. When PM Carney went to the US. Donald Trump didn't welcome him at the airport, nor did he send anyone. Same with actually Zelensky. When Zelensky visits the US at the moment, he's not met by any US dignitaries. They're quite insulting to allies who come. I'm sure they lay the red carpet out for Putin and Xi Jinping. But when the Canadian ambassador was the one who welcomed Carney into the US, and the same with Zelensky. But here in China, when Canada's leader goes to China, they treat him like the leader of a superpower. No annexation talk, no governor jokes. It's actual respect here. China knows what it's doing. Like, this is very good diplomacy from China, which is, we know that your neighbors and otherwise best mates are really eschewing you at the moment. They're pushing you away. We will welcome you in. Look at this pomp and circumstance. Look at these red carpets. Look at how much we respect you. Come and do a trade deal with us. This is a stark contrast.
Yes. And listen, I know I'm coming in here at the end, but I'm actually speechless, to be quite honest, because I've been talking or on top of this all day in regard to Greenland, of which we're focused on right now. But I have to even zoom us out a little bit about the big picture. I've been talking to my friends in the Middle East. I think we're having a complete foreign policy failure and implosion from the United States of America, because Donald J. Trump is authoritarian dictator, no matter how you view it. And guys, you know, I am a conservative, Republican, Christian. I am the opposite of Johnny Pierce, but we agree on so much. And the bottom line is, MAGA is a cult. It is led by cult leader Donald J. Trump, and I will call him for what he is. He had the audacity to receive a Nobel Prize that was given to another person, and the biggest smile since somebody was at the circus seeing their first clown when they're 7 years old. Okay, that shows you the character and the morality of this vile human being. Now, I'm going to drop a rant on you. If you're going to talk, because I just was talking with my guys in the Middle East, if you're going to go big and say, if there's one bullet fired, if anything happens, if a protester is killed, and I know I'm mixing topics here, but it's all connected, and there's anything that happens about these protesters in Iran, we're coming, guns a-blazing, we're going to bring hell down on you. And instead of that, the Iranian regime got a congratulatory tweet, and good job, because you didn't hang 800 people. Now, all of my buddies in the Middle East are ballistic, and a lot of those people are actually, I don't want to call them MAGA because they're not U.S. citizens, but they're very supportive of the things Donald Trump has done for the Middle East, including the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran. So their perspective now is, we don't know who this human being is anymore, because he is killing people by just his mere words. I'm watching video tonight out of Iran that's coming through Israel, and I'm getting it, and I know they have a media shutdown, but we're getting a little bit out, where the Revolutionary Guard right now shooting people in the streets. And that is what is happening. But hey, you got a thumbs up, and we're not going to do something. And I don't want to talk here, well, it's some great strategy. No, the great strategy is, you took our aircraft carrier out of that region of the world and you moved it to Venezuela for a nighttime operation to steal a dictator, granted, but to kidnap a leader of another nation. So now we are weak in the Middle East.
And sell that oil. So we've just heard now that $500 million
sorry,
worth of oil
I'm sorry,
has been
but
put in
I
the
was
Qatari
listening.
account.
Yes.
And it's gone, and he's now just, it's all to the benefit of someone who aided him. You know, like, contracts are going to his mates, and yeah, it's all thoroughly problematic.
I'm just so aggravated right now, because it's an absolute disaster. You don't know how bad I want to get on an airplane right now and go to Greenland. I might as well, because at my home, it's a complete blizzard, so the weather would be the same. I'm just so frustrated that we would even make the statement to our friends and allies. I think about my grandfather in World War II, who told me stories of fighting hand in hand with French and hand in hand with Brits to defend the world and defend what is right against the axis of evil. And now we are going to talk about, hey, you know what? We're going to tariff you if you don't give it to us. So we're going to hold Greenland hostage. And by the way, when I first started listening to your rant, you were spot on, because the bottom line is, all you've got to do, and you did such a wonderful job on that, JP, is ask, hey guys, we're on the same team here and we need to defend. We need to do more.
That's literally the point of NATO. And then when you add in to that, hey, you can go and mine whatever, like Denmark has previously offered the US mining rights in across Greenland. And if they haven't really taken it on, it's because it's not economically viable. I think my personal opinion is that there are tech oligarchs actually at the heart of what he's doing with Greenland and his own sense of being an emperor.
Okay. You ready?
So I yeah.
I completely agree with you. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, I have a family member who is very well-to-do in real estate. And that family member is negotiating a deal for a data center and all the infrastructure that goes with it in the United States in a certain state. And no, it's not my state of Pennsylvania. And that negotiation is ongoing with Jeff Bezos. Okay? Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos is invested into a company in Greenland. Mm-hmm. And Greenland is extremely logical place for the placement of data centers due to the necessary resources. And I know this from talking to my family members. I don't care what's written out there. I know what's required for the data center that this person is talking to Bezos and his company about. And that is massive amounts of cool water, basically your own independent power supply with massive amounts of power. Mm-hmm. And it checks all the boxes.
Yep. So honestly, Greg, like if you have time tomorrow, I did a big old live stream. I've done 2 massive live streams recently that I think are the most important live streams I've probably ever done. One was today, and it was a 2-hour live stream on ICE and Minnesota and the authoritarian move towards internal security services, and I showed a whole host of videos that were pretty appalling, and it was like, that was a big chunky video I did today. If any of you guys haven't watched my ICE video today, please go and watch that. The other one was a live stream I did the other day that was also 2 hours long because it required to be that long, partly because one of the biggest segments in it were on tech and Greenland and tech and the EU, and they're connected, right? So the US attack on the EU, if you like, or Europe as a whole, is better understood in terms of the United States foreign diplomacy, or the United States as an entity being the marketing arm of big tech, right? And so that's why they want the EU to either be completely disunited so that they don't have the EU as a whole acting as a regulatory body against big tech, or so you either have individual countries that big tech can take advantage of, or if it's going to be as a whole of the EU, they are getting into bed with lots of the right-wing groups in the EU that would be up for deregulation. So they either have the EU deregulating as a whole with regard to big tech, or the EU falling apart and therefore big tech being able to take advantage of individual countries. So that's the things. Brussels Times had a really good article on this, looking at investigations into how much lobbying big tech is doing in the EU. Okay, so that's one thing. But it's connected to this, and it's this article. If you read anything tomorrow, Greg, it is this article in the New Republic, which is fascinating. And this is exactly what you're just talking about, and it gives you all the meat on the bones to what you were just saying with regard to all the oligarchs, who they are, and how much money is involved, and what they're planning on having in terms of freedom cities in Greenland, and how they are pushing the US thing. And the last thing I'll say on this is it's really interesting. So one thing to look at is one of these guys called Howery. I forget his first name. So there's this company called Praxis, which is one of the ones that is looking to take advantage of Greenland, that's had people like Sam Altman from OpenAI, Peter Thiel, all these big tech oligarchs. Ken Howery, right? He's a former venture capitalist, previously co-founded PayPal alongside Thiel and Musk. So Ken Howery, remember that name, Greg? So I'm just going to read you the last part of this article. Howery wasn't just simply another hyper-capitalist floating out of Silicon Valley. He was appointed by Trump himself as America's newest ambassador to Denmark, and was specifically, quote, expected to lead Greenland acquisition negotiations. Those familiar with his appointment said, nearly a year later, those negotiations are reaching their final stages, with Trump telegraphing that he will make whatever move necessary, even military if needed, to steal Greenland. It's a plan that has a potential to fracture NATO and even spark a new age of nuclear arms races and outright imperialism. It is also, as we're now learning, a plan that extends far beyond Trump, and that includes a cast of oligarchs looking to steer America empire once more. So the final statement here is this, Greg. Praxis, which is this company that has these oligarchs invested in it, wants to have Greenland, wants to have these data centers and what are called freedom cities in Greenland. They have a Twitter account, and when Ken Howery was appointed to ambassador of Denmark by Trump, Praxis's social media feed posted in response to Howery's appointment, according to plan. So in other words, there is a plan going on here that involves Greenland that isn't just about Trump's ego and Trump's imperialism, which is also a thing, right? And it isn't just about rare earth minerals and oil and this and that, but it's about the intentions and the desires and the agenda of big tech in the United States. That is a worry, and that is playing out as we see today and as we see from this article. Read this article. It's amazing.
100% agree. And, you know, we can even throw a little, I can throw a little fuel on that if you want to. The special envoy. So, you know, we have to have an envoy for everything now. You know, we don't allow the Secretary of State, although he started to get a little bit more goo-goo-eyed with the MAGA world. So that's why he's a little more active. But, you know, we don't allow the United States government to do and fulfill things the way it should, like with ambassadors and Secretary of States. We just appoint envoys who will carry out our critical mission. So we have this cat named Jeff Landry. He's the governor of Louisiana. So this cat is the envoy to Greenland. All right. I don't know the cat, nothing personal. But when you're making statements that Iceland's next and you're going to be the 52nd or 53rd state.
That wasn't Landry. Actually, that wasn't Landry. That was the
Which
nominee
one was that?
For that was the nominee for Iceland ambassador.
That's
so the
it.
guy
Thank you.
So he said Iceland's going to be the 56th, but Landry
if you're
is also
talking about
geothermal
geothermal capital of the world, I've been to Iceland.
Yeah.
All it is stuff coming out of the, but this is the problem. And I'm not a doctor, but I like to watch House MD. And when you watch House, they'll have like 40 minutes where they're trying to figure out the diagnosis. And then at the last minute, some great idea will come to Dr. Gregory House, and he'll go, no, it's this, and this is why, treat them with this. The person has a miraculous recovery and goes on with their life. Okay, that's House. Let me tell you something. Right now, we've got symptoms out of the wazoo, and we're in the first 40 minutes of the show. But when it comes down to it, Dr. House is going to stand up. Oh, this is easy. The problem is Donald Trump. And he has completely destabilized the entire global order. Now, whoever's partnering with him in that, either actively or passively, like in this situation, we can definitely say for sure there's passive agreement. We've got Kirill Dmitriev today, you know, trolling the European leaders, saying, "Hey, don't pick on your daddy, don't push the wrong buttons." So that is, you know, passive complicity, passive support. You know, it's not a direct statement to the U.S., but it's the direct statement to European leaders. Immediately after that comes out, you know, today Budanov, Umarov, Akhmanian, they're in Florida to meet. And is there any news about that? Zero. Why? Because everything is swallowed up with what's going on here. Vladimir Putin does not have to open his mouth. Xi Jinping does not have to open their mouth. They just sit back and watch it. That's all they're doing. And listen, Timothy Snyder, tweeted out, Putin, failing in his East European war, summons his American clients to organize a diversion in Western Europe. Now that's Dr. Timothy Snyder.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not
Now,
wrong.
Michael McFaul, and listen, Michael
Former ambassador
McFaul.
to Russia.
That's why you have to listen to Michael McFaul. You know, politically, I don't see everything the same as Michael McFaul, but when it comes to Russia and the war in Ukraine, Michael McFaul is bullseye. So now he tweets, every aspiring Democratic presidential candidate should pledge right now that if somehow Trump manages to take Greenland, they will return the territory to Denmark in 2028. What planet are we on? Like, why do we even have to talk about this? There is an emergency meeting tomorrow of European leaders. An emergency meeting because of one tweet that this deranged individual makes.
So I don't think that the US would ever militarily invade.
I 100% agree.
Because I don't think the Pentagon and military people would agree to that. And I don't think Congress certainly wouldn't, right? And you would have the Trump administration on its own. And actually, it would be the end of NATO, the end of EU trade. It will be boycotting. It would be freaking major. So it would never come to that. So this is all about forcing a sale. This is all about making a kind of quasi-diplomatic succession of Greenland to the United States. But even that is way too aggressive and undiplomatic, really, for allies.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
What is not being talked about right now?
Well,
Ukraine.
The Epstein files.
No, Ukraine. Now we're talking about Ukraine.
Yeah.
But okay. And the Epstein files.
Yeah. That's it. I think this is very important.
It's
100%.
extremely important. It's extremely important. We have no transparency in our government, although they believe that they are the most transparent administration in the history of the United States. We have no transparency.
I don't know if you're aware today, Trump's DOJ has come out and said, or Pam Bondi's DOJ has come out and said, we are going to, there's no legal requirement for us to release the Epstein files, which was the legal requirement from the signed bill that Trump signed. So they are actively trying not to release the Epstein files in very significant ways. But I guess the question then is, well, what's the response here in terms of, like, yes, we can talk about rhetoric. We can say, hey, Swedish Prime Minister said this, British Prime Minister said this, whatever. Mm-hmm. But actually, what happens from here on in? So you have talk here from, say, Anonymous saying, we urge all British and European people to boycott any Trump business, also to use your buying power to avoid US products and services. Problem is IT actually there. But anyway, it's clear the Republicans have no guts to remove him from office. Therefore, the only way is to boycott US products. So realistically, what might happen going forward? Will there be a major boycott? We have this idea that Trump has backed down previously from all of these sort of situations he's got himself in with his bombastic rhetoric. Will he do a bit of taco? We have this claim here. Europe's AI underdogs are suddenly taking on big tech and winning hearts and investors. Forget the old story where Silicon Valley giants set the pace for artificial intelligence. In 2026, a vibrant ecosystem of smaller European companies is rapidly proving blah, 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 blah. You've got all these startups. You've got this idea that the Europe is saying I've reported on this the last couple of days, but even Amazon cloud services have said we are going to set up a European-based Amazon cloud services because we know that Europe is getting really peed off with the United States and they're going to ditch us if they can. So rather than have them create their own cloud services, we will create cloud services that will be based in Europe and operated within Europe. So there's some kind of hybrid situation. But the idea is that Europe is gearing up to boycott or move away from the US economically and have their own kind of independence there. And, is that what we're going to see over the coming days?
If any human being on this planet can predict what we're going to see over the coming days, then please just give me 6 numbers. I'm going to go play the lottery. Let me tell you this. Hours ago, Johnny, and I'm drinking some Powerade Gatorade here because every electrolyte went out of my body when I saw the things unfold this afternoon. And I always try to bring people in my community or wherever I'm at speaking to the big picture. And the big picture is it's just a world absolutely on fire. And instead of trying to make it better, we're just stoking the flames. You guys may or may not know this, but today, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu had a major disagreement on a bombing run, a massive disagreement. Okay. Secondly, there is a massive disagreement about this peace council that Donald Trump has created, and now being reported by multiple news outlets that Donald Trump proposes allocating at least $1 billion so a country can buy a seat to sit on the Peace Council to have voice for $1 billion. So it is like we are seeing an attempt to rewrite the world order. And what's interesting about that is I can take you guys back to 2022. After the invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin went on state television in Russia and says it is over now. There is a new world order coming, and it is not going to look the same. We've seen the same rhetoric and actions from China, and now we are seeing the same actions and rhetoric from the United States and Donald Trump. Let me make this picture very easy to see. Vladimir Putin says no NATO in Ukraine, no European armies in Ukraine. You can't keep coming closer to us, NATO. And then we know Finland joined in all of those things, okay? But now we have Donald Trump saying, hey, it's the Monroe Doctrine. It's the Dunroe Doctrine. You can't come closer to us. There are fleets, there are armadas of Russian ships and Chinese destroyers all around Greenland. That is why we must have it. We're the only ones that can defend against that. You Europeans have 2 dog sleds. You can't do it. It's the same statement, just different language, different time, different place, but it's the same message. And all this is doing is pushing Vladimir Putin every day to not only not look for peace, not only try to find a way for peace, but it pushes him to go even harder. Why? Because now the U.S. is saying, we've got to get our Golden Dome up. And I need Greenland for that. And I need Canada for that. And what are we doing? We're coming closer, doing exactly what Putin, it's the same argument. It doesn't matter. You can put it as Putin's face, Trump's face, or Xi's face. That's what you have. It's easy to see. Easy to see.
Playing into the hands of this multipolarity, as I said, and the shifting of the global power from the United States. You've even had like a move away from, you've had this, I don't want to get too geeky here, but you've had a move away from the dollar being necessarily the international currency of trade. Is it not right? I do believe in the last week that China has sold Chinese bonds in US dollars. Am I correct? Which is, there's some really weird shifts there in terms of international financing. But I wanted to just talk about a couple of things, if I may.
Let's do it,
Greg. Here. So
and before you do that, because we'll probably go down a rabbit hole here. So before you, and not that that's a bad thing, I just want to say thank you to everybody that jumped on the live stream with a moment's notice. Usually I like to plan them ahead and give you time to schedule. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. If you're on my channel and you haven't subscribed to Johnny, please do so. We're
likewise
great buddies, and likewise. And I'd also like to say thank you for those that are joining members and super chats and questions. We'll get to those in a minute. Just thank you. And thank you to all the mods who jumped in with zero notice. So thank you. All right, JP, let's go.
Well, just going to say, like, public opinion at the moment. So President says, Jim Sciutto from CNN, the president and his supporters will say this doesn't matter or might even celebrate the numbers. But the fact is that there are countries run by elected leaders who know their voters and have a greater incentive to enact policies counter to US interests. See the new Canadian trade with China that we've just talked about. So We've got some data out
That's
here.
right. Yes.
There's an incredible number. Only 16% of EU citizens now consider the US as an ally. Even in the UK, which is kind of generally more pro-US, is down to a meager 25%. In fact, perceptions of the US as an ally are in complete collapse globally. Only India is a very odd exception. So you've got India skewing more positively, a move of +5 since November 24 to November 2025. And bear in mind, this is up to November 2025. So think of all the things that have happened since then, including today. But all around the world, whether it be Brazil, UK, South Africa, Ukraine, EU 10 states, Turkey, China, Switzerland, you have, and even Russia, you have a movement to the negative. Now, taking into account what's happened today, and you have people's opinion of the US as an ally going down. Now, Moscow here, according to Max 25, hopes Greenland will become an iceberg that sinks NATO, or this is a former NATO Secretary General, Anders Fogh Rasmussen. He says, quote, "It goes beyond Denmark and Greenland. The conquest of Greenland would mean the end of the world order as we know it," which was exactly what you were saying and what we believe. It just really would shift everything. And then just one other thing here. This is a rumor that's coming out of Washington at the moment that it's being reported House Democrats are just 5 votes away from having enough votes to impeach Donald Trump. I would say it's actually, they would probably have enough votes in the House of Representatives. Just to let you know, before I let Greg come back in here, is that to impeach Donald Trump, as far as I understand it, in the House of Representatives, you only need a straight majority. So all you need is all the Democrat, I'm sure every single Democrat would vote to impeach, and then just a couple of Republicans, and people like Don Bacon seem to be well up for that. So, but then you need what is it? Is it 67 votes in? So you need a 2/3 majority in the Senate. That's where you're going to have trouble to impeach Trump, and that's where the previous impeachment attempts have obviously failed. But I don't know, these days at the moment, I think that Trump is going so off-piste at the moment that he's really imperiling his own, I think, power in the US. There will be the most crazed of the base, but surely Republican senators and representatives are going to be thinking, this is not the way, this is not the America I was envisaging. I don't know.
Well, let's take all of that and set it aside. Let's say that November 2026, there will be massive shifts, and that is what is expected. It happens even in normal times. There's always a midterm shift, and for sure, this is not normal times. So let's table all of that for a minute, and let's say that there is an impeachment, but it doesn't happen until November of 2026 after midterm elections. Brother, it is only January the 17th.
Yeah.
and I do not know what world we're going to be living in come January the 18th. There's no way to predict right now what November 2026 will look like. I mean, Germany's talking about boycotting the World Cup. We're in such uncharted territories. I don't think it's even possible to predict, because I hate to play prediction games, conspiracy games, all of those. I just like to look at the facts. The fact is, the world in which we're living today, January the 17th, is significantly different than the world we were living in January 10th. On January 10th, there were massive protests happening in Iran. They're still there. There was a threat of impending doom coming upon them from the U.S. military. That went away during this week with the congratulations from Donald Trump. And now we thought that, okay, the Greenland story will just kind of fade away. No, that is now amplified to the front. We have Ukraine critically in need of power stabilization.
Yeah.
We have ongoing corruption issues right now. We're dealing with Tymoshenko there in Kyiv and working through that with Nabu. Ukraine defending valiantly on the front lines. Zelensky himself stating this week, we had a little bit of a delay in our weapons coming for our air defense. Isn't it interesting? We have, and I'm not conspiracy theorying, these are facts now. We had a delay in arrival of air defense supplies. At the same time, Moscow unleashes massive attacks on infrastructure. And now we are expecting another massive strike per Zelensky, per Ukrainian military, per Russian chatter. So it's coming again. We're just talking about the last 7 days. We can then go to what is happening. We just watched a human being take with joy another human being's Nobel Peace Prize. Let me tell you something. If you wanted to receive any kind of any thought that you had one blood cell of decency as a human being, Donald Trump, the answer there would have been, no, thank you, ma'am. You won that award. And instead of you giving it to me and let me smile upon you, let me place it back upon your neck and say, thank you for all you've done for your nation in Venezuela. That's what an honorable human being would have done. But no, he not only takes it, then reminds the world, I've stopped 8 wars. Yeah, how that's working out for you. And I guess I got it because I deserved it. Right?
Mm.
That's what a 3-year-old says, that you're training that are running around with crowns at a preschool when you're teaching them about morality. And I can keep listing, sir, just the last 7 days. We're not even, we haven't even moved into American internal politics, whether it be Epstein files, whether it be ICE, whether it be disagreements that are happening all throughout our nation where we are completely destabilized from the inside out. The list can go on and on and on. That's why looking at the possibility of an impeachment, even now or in November, yeah.
Greg, some people are saying your camera, by the way, you're quite blurred. I don't know if that's an issue.
It is. I know that. I'm talking to my guys good. Are you pushing me out at 1080? That's the question.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. It's
okay.
It's
everything's looking good on mine. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Because everything on my backside looks good. Well, that didn't sound too
I bet
good,
it does. I bet it does, mate. You know, you gotta love your backside.
Well,
but you know, it's probably not the place to talk about it.
They're blurring me over here in America. They're blurring me.
What's happening is because we're hosting this in Europe, we're just rejecting you. We're just like everything.
It's already happening too. I'm sorry for the blurring, guys. You know, that's typically not what we're doing. I'm checking some other things.
Yeah. So just to let you know that it looks like, as I mentioned earlier, the EU-US trade deal is going to be off. The plug is expected to be pulled on the Trump's tariff deal with the EU by the European Parliament on Wednesday after 2 of the biggest blocks of MEPs. So in the European Parliament, you have, I forget how many it is, 700 whatever MEPs, member of European Parliament. So all the different countries of the EU, they come together, and because they're all in different parties in their own individual countries, they need to form into blocks, into coalitions inside the European Parliament. So if you're, say, a Liberal Party from Britain, or no, actually not Britain, because we're not in the EU, from Spain, you would associate with Liberal parties from all these other countries. And if you're a far right party, you would associate with so on and so forth. So you form these coalitions. Now, it says here that 2 blocks look like they're going to pull the plug on it. And then later on, we hear that a third voting bloc in the European Parliament has said they will halt the ratification of the EU-US trade deal. So it looks like that will be off, which is a big deal, right? So it means that essentially the US and the EU are simply going to be economic loggerheads, and all the arguable good work that's been done in economic transactions between the 2 entities will be undone. The same, I'm sure, can be said about the UK, which we had a pretty decent deal with the US actually compared to the EU, and it looks like that's going to be undone too. So, you know, as Finland's prime minister said, the tariffs are in no one's interest, because actually what Trump is doing is shooting himself in the foot as well as shooting Europe in the foot, particularly because tariffs are a tax on his own population. But there you go. I don't know if you have anything to say to
no,
that.
I just got everybody laughing at my video quality right now, because on yours it's clear. It's something goofy. Because I've checked everything. I'm good here. It's just something going on. It's because I'm under an IP attack from the Europeans because you guys are mad at Donald Trump.
Honestly, this is true. I think this is what's happening, and I fully agree with it. And I advocate for Greg Terry being being sanctioned. We are basically IT sanctioning you.
Oh my goodness.
So it's going to be interesting to see people like Tom Tillis, who is a retiring senator in the US, a Republican senator. He is pretty critical of Trump at the moment, and you'll find that the people who have the spine to be critical from the Republican Party are people who are going to be not running again in November for the midterms. What I'd like to see is people who are stalwart kind of members of the Republican Party. It's good to see Lisa Murkowski, I think, in the group that I think went to Greenland, or I don't know if it's Greenland or Denmark, a bipartisan group. She was there, but you would kind of expect her to be there. I'd like to see more kind of bog standard Republican lawmakers to come out and be quite critical of Trump. And it's going to be interesting if the next 24 hours sees anyone sort of poke their heads above the parapet and say, Trump, no, I don't agree with this.
Well, let me throw one more thing in the mix. Even if I'm blurry, we can still hear it. You probably are going to hear and see, guys, an uptick in the Syrian battle going on. This is elevating and escalating by the day, and this is going to be another dividing factor that is happening in the world right now. So I keep up with it, but I've not been reporting on it because it's not to the level yet, but we're getting very close where the line's being drawn in the sand. And then you're going to have significant differences. Of course, this is regarding around the Kurds. So just watch it. It's going to be another layer on the pipe.
Yeah, I haven't. I sort of was hearing about this a little bit. Oh, your visuals are a little bit better. I was hearing a little bit about this in terms of the Kurds and no, actually no, not great. In terms of the Kurds and Syria, but I don't know too much detail about that. It looks like the Syrian army is trying to push the Kurds.
Yes, and
Syria,
there's a lot of fighting going on right now. That's just not being heavily reported because it's really way down on the list, but this is significant. And especially with the new Syrian president and his background, I mean, it's a big story that's right on the brink of going to that next level global. So,
and of course you got Turkey as well, who are not big fans of the Kurds. So they're
absolutely, well, there's your big issue. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, Turkey, Iran. Just wait, guys. It's all listen. Happening. That's what I'm saying. Just wait on the serious story because it's coming. I'm telling you. And this is I'm just so disappointed, man. I'm just so disappointed that this is the world in which we live. I'm thinking right now, you and I and all these wonderful people that are watching, even if I'm blurry, and I'm sorry about that.
We should be brothers and sisters together.
You know, we really should. And we need to take the things that we disagree upon and work them through and find out common grounds. And while we're doing this, Ukrainians are sitting in very, very cold apartments tonight with some temperatures being below freezing in apartment buildings. I mean, below 0 Celsius. And I'm thinking with no power, no heat, no water. I'm thinking about Iranians trying to fight for a new future for their nation being massacred. I'm thinking about the chaos that's happening internally inside my country. And I'm just so disappointed. And I guess not really disappointed. The better word would be disgusted. I'm just disgusted that this is the world that we have to live in right now. But I'm encouraged that there is a massive amount of people that recognize it and realize that we need to come together and stand for what is right and put down the minor things that separate us and focus on the main things. But it's hard to do that.
Yeah, because the challenge is you're going to get pushback from Europeans against the United States.
Let me just finish.
You're going to get,
It's hard to do that when you have an absolute incompetent, self-absorbed, narcissistic, amoral human being in the most powerful position on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you get no disagreement from.
I know
me.
I don't get disagreement
Yeah.
from you, but it's hard to get beyond that. Somebody's got to stand up to this guy. And Republicans, what on earth are you doing? You bunch of cowards. And I'm a Republican. You bunch of cowards, except for a few of you. Get your head out of your rear and stop this lunatic. Sorry.
Yeah, because
I'm going to get some more electrolytes in.
Well, so what you're going to get is this. So here's a website that's been developed. I referenced this the other day.
Wait a second. No, let me finish.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And yes, I'm only drinking Gatorade. I do not drink alcohol. Listen, I'm not a tippler. And I'm disappointed, but it's waking up now. A lot of the hard right Christian nationalist morons that have fallen under the Jim Jones Kool-Aid are starting to wake up just a little bit, and go, what on earth is happening? And now, by an overwhelming majority, there's still so many, and I'm a Christian, guys, so many of those far-right national lunatic Christians that are still wanting to walk around and shine his shoes. But we are getting a little bit of movement now. We've just got to keep it going. So there.
Yeah.
Covering the Christians too.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Thanks for that. What I was going to say is...
Well, it's better for me to talk about the Christians than you, the atheist.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Although
So
you do have an angelic glow on your forehead when you take your hat off.
I know. It's a natural, secular halo.
All right, I won't interrupt you this time.
As I like to say. So you are going to get this natural pushback to Trump and therefore the United States. And he is causing a division between these cultures, between these entities that is so unfortunate. We need to be working together at a time when the world is at its most fractious. We've got all sorts of problems to contend with, both natural disasters and natural situations, as well as man-made issues like wars and so on and so forth. And so, websites like this, European Alternatives for Digital Products, which split out all these different categories into like web analytic services, cloud computing platforms, email providers, and it gives you all of the European alternatives to what is usually provided by the United States. And you're going to see more and more of this. So I'm thinking that the words boycott is going to be used an awful lot in the coming weeks, in the coming days, because the United States, I think, has pushed the Europeans away here. Like here, for example, a Canadian says, "Hey, my European friends and allies, you can choose to boycott American products." Canadians have, and it has decimated the US bourbon industry. The best part of this entire thing is a consumer-driven boycott is capitalism at its finest. A tariff isn't. So vote with your feet, vote with your wallet, and actually you can hurt the Americans. But of course, this kind of economic war hurts both sides. No one wins out of this. No one wins, and that is, I think, the big takeaway that we have to worry about. Senator Mark Kelly, who could have been the VP for Kamala Harris, she chose Tim Walz, but he was one of the options. He's the senator from Arizona, who's a former astronaut and naval pilot. I like Mark Kelly a lot. Troops from European countries are arriving in Greenland to defend the territory from the US, from us, sorry. Let that sink in. And now Trump is setting tariffs on our allies, making you pay more to try to get territory we don't need. The damage this president is doing to our reputation, our relationships is growing, make us less safe. If something doesn't change, we will be on our own with the adversaries and enemies in every direction. Republicans in Congress need to stand up to Trump. So that's kind of what you were talking about. But this idea that if you're not careful, the US will be on its own as Europe will look towards China to be its more reliable ally. And then by not picking on the adversaries like China and Russia and Iran, and by picking on Europe, by picking on the UK, by picking on, the people that could stand with you, Canada and Mexico, he is isolating himself. You might think it's great. Yeah, it's easy to bully people who are weaker than us because we see allies as weaker rather than standing up to these strong Chinese and Russian empires as we see it. The problem is you're going to be on your own soon, Trump. the US will be on its own. And when this is one thing that might happen, but if the Europeans kick the Americans out of bases, NATO bases in Europe, like in the UK, we have like a dozen bases. You have your nuclear capabilities in East Anglia in Europe. If you get to a point where Europe goes, screw you, the United States, you can take your IT, you can take your goods, and we'll boycott stuff, but we're also going to kick you out of our military bases, then you will not have the ability to project power into the Mediterranean, into the Middle East, into into Suez Canal, down into the Atlantic, where you've got Gibraltar, you would have access to, if Europe really wanted to get hardcore with the US, yes, Europe will lose out big time, but the US will not be able to project power in a way it presently is able to. And that is serious.
I 100% concur and agree. Let me ask you this, Johnny. Are you my friend? That I assume that means yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes.
You're my friend.
I am your friend.
Sir, I would never hold you hostage. Ever. You're my friend. If there was something we needed to work out, we would find a way to work it out.
There you go.
And it would be behind closed doors, and it would not be through social media.
Threats on social
Correct.
media.
The United States is literally threatening to hold our friends hostage. And if we do not get what we like on February the 1st, by June, we're going to increase our strength of our stranglehold. Okay. I'm so hoping that the European leaders come together, and those ambassadors in their emergency meeting tomorrow, and come out, because we've already heard from Macron, we've heard from Keir, we've heard from Stubb, we've heard from many of the European leaders just with their instant reactions. But they're supposed to be putting out a joint statement. And we already are reading that the trade deal is on the nix now between the EU and the US until we figure this out. But if the European Union leaders and the UK do not fire back fire against fire, it will be a critical mistake. Yeah. They must. And I'm so hoping that you guys over there, European nations, so many wonderful people, UK, but ball it up and be bold, because the only way you deal with a bully is you punch him right back. And it has to be done. That's the problem with Putin. The bully is bullying and he's not being punched. Now, Ukraine is punching him hard, but Ukraine needs help punching him. It's a big bully. So he's got to be punched. He's not punched. He's enjoying the show. So I'm really, tomorrow's going to be a big day. What statements are going to come out? Are there going to be any adjustments? But regardless, the cards have been shown. Donald Trump always wants to talk about cards. The cards have been shown. We know who you are. And you have talked the rhetoric. You have put out the threats. But now you have you've went way too far now with threatening our friends and allies. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Denmark here, says Lisa Jonassen. We are not budging, and Greenland is not for sale. I think it's at the end of the day, it's up to Denmark and Greenlanders themselves to
put that back up for me.
Which one?
That graphic right there, Denmark. With that map. See, I read all of the news in Russian, and then I'll translate it for people. And if you guys are here, I do a lot of translations and voiceovers, and people enjoy it so much. It's a lot of work, but it makes it easier to understand. So in Russian media, this is what they say. That picture right there is why we must have Ukraine and all of it. That picture right there. And now Trump comes out and says, we have to have Greenland because of Russia. So all he's doing is amplifying the Putin message against Ukraine. That's it. That's all he's doing, amongst other things. But he is pushing Vladimir Putin to continue to wage war. He's not bringing him to a negotiating table. He's pushing him to drop more bombs and send more drones and hire more soldiers and get more crap from North Korea. And he's complicit in it. I'm sorry. It's complicit.
Yeah. So I guess what remains certainly for me to say now, I don't know about you, but I've obviously, gone to town on this topic. I just want to say
thank you for inviting me in here, and for everybody that jumped in
always
on the stream. We'll get to all the comments and the super chats now. Let's hit them. Thank you, and I'm sorry for the blur. That's all Johnny's fault and the EU.
You seem to be clear now.
It's clearing up. Well, I put some I put some anti
blur makeup,
complexion anti-blur cream on. It seems to be helping.
Done a good job. Maybe the relationship between the EU, between Europe and the US has just suddenly thawed. Stupidity in essence with some Danish love. This move is going to backfire big time. Enough is enough. No more sucking up to Trump. Europe will put its foot down. There is too much at stake. I think we might have reached finally an inflection point where everyone is willing to stand up to.
Would that be called critical mass? We've reached it.
I think
because the video that was released earlier with Macron calling Donald Trump and him waking up in a drunk stupor was not critical mass. But now I think we're there. So I think that's a great comment.
You talking about the one where he talks about the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't shared that with my audience yet.
Sorry. Forget it, man. I've got to drink more electrolytes. Like, I'm really cooked. And
yes.
I don't even think about it. I had this conversation with Gertis earlier today. I don't even think about it anymore.
What's his position?
He's boiling. He is boiling mad. Completely like I am.
I've had people in the live chat here saying, well, what about Gertis? What does he think?
100% against this boiling. You'll see it on videos he's putting out. Listen, it's come to the point now where I have zero hope for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I know people say, well, Greg, you should have had zero hope 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I understand that, but I'm talking about zero. Like, I cannot like somebody and still have a 1% hope they'll do something positive. I have zero hope that he's going to do anything positive for anything other than himself.
Yeah.
And anyway, keep going, man.
Thank you very much, Richard Bennett, for the ATP Geopolitics membership. Thank you. Really kind. Ignis of the Flame. I best stock up on pork pies, Yorkshire tea bags, and hobnobs before the prices go up. Can't live without them. These are true British staples of our diet. Do you know what? Chocolate hobnobs. I can't eat them anymore because I don't eat dairy because of my MS. And I'm trying to be a vegan. Chocolate hobnobs. They're the best biscuits ever.
Do you eat fish and chips?
So I occasionally eat fish because of the omega. But I try and find fish alternatives if I can. But occasionally I will dip into fish. And fish and chips. Yes. So stupidity in essence. We had 9 Democrats and 2 GOP in Denmark the last 2 days. So I think that was Lisa Murkowski. I don't know who the other Republican was. But again, overwhelmingly Democrat, which is that's the challenge, is you need Republicans to stand up to Trump. So because at the end of the day, and I listened to an analysis on this the other day saying that actually Trump is no longer the GOP, and you would agree with this, Greg.
100% he's not the GOP.
The idea is, and you've had Donald Trump Jr. coming out saying that we are now the MAGA party, we're not the GOP, we're the MAGA party, and that's it forever type thing. And you have, so it was Sarah Longwell and Jessica Tarlov talking about how actually Trump is now the independent candidate. So he's like this independent third party that has taken over the GOP, but the independents that wouldn't previously vote for Democrats or Republicans have now come out. The kind of extreme people people often think independents are like these swing voters in the middle of Democrats and Republicans. But that while there are those independents, there are also independents who were like Tea Party people who never would have voted previously because they're so extreme and they're so like batshit crazy that they're like, I don't vote for the GOP. They're all as bad as each other. But Trump's come in and he's got those people to vote, and those people seem to have like subsumed the Republican Party, so that they are now this kind of weird MAGA hybrid independent party, and they're not the conservative Republicans of old. So I think that's quite interesting, important distinction. Hutch here
keep going.
Says, as a frequent commenting American, I want to find a bit of light in this. This might be the one thing that finally gets Europe's ass in gear and start going all out for their own defense, I hope. Yep, there is certainly that.
Great comment from Dutch, 6279, 100%. Oh, Hutch, sorry.
Yeah. Stupidity in essence again. EU have just made the trade agreement with South America. Yep. So I talked about this earlier. Sorry, this would be a super chat from much earlier. Yeah, talked about the Mercosur agreement with between the EU and these 4 nations of South America, which is one of the biggest free trade deals in the world. And again, that is pushing the EU closer to South America, and again, South America away from the orbit of the United States. So, that's not good for the United States in terms of economic power and hegemony. Putin puppet during World War II, the Allies had to work with Russia. Now we have to work with China. The US might be more isolated it could ever dream to have been. Yeah. I think people are being pushed towards being friends with people they wouldn't otherwise have been friends with.
We have to refer back to Carney's statements within the last 24 hours. Very significant in the warming relationships with China and the economic deals.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, stupidity in essence. The problem for the US is that DJT's tariffs are already a large percentage of the inflation in the US, and he will spike it even further without new tariffs. It's economic suicide. I mean, I was wondering how much mitigation there might come from stealing Venezuelan oil to mitigate against the cost of tariffs. So that on the one hand, he's taking a tax from the EU, from his own population and consumers through tariffs, and on the other hand, stealing money from Venezuela and pumping that into the into the economy. So I don't know.
Let me just say one thing about the American economy. Okay, tariffs is not a policy. Number one, we all agree on that. But as an American, I know there are a lot of Americans here, as on my channel and yours, I'm sure as well. But our economic situation here has not improved. Okay, no matter what you see, what you hear, our petrol, since I'm on Johnny's channel, our petrol is not cheaper. Our cost of food is not cheaper. Our healthcare is not cheaper. Nothing, everything, nothing is working. Okay, nothing. So there's no argument to stand on, and I see now I have 2 Jonathans to deal with.
I was wanting to go to bed, Greg, and now Fink's come and joined in. Like, just Johnny come lately.
He's bringing that angelic dome in with him.
Oh, man. Jonathan, welcome. Chaps. We've already talked about everything. We've done everything. Like,
you've done everything. Here I am.
You can't be any more enraged than we've been.
JHop 814. I just saw it go past because Jonathan, guys, is hosting this stream. So I'm actually watching the chat up here on this monitor, and it's flying by because I'm seeing all the chat. But I saw Meadville, PA. Shout out to you, dude. Let's go.
How are you, Jonathan?
I'd say okay, but I think, like everybody else, feeling somewhat frazzled. Even though I think it's not coming as a huge surprise, it is still shocking. And of course, it's how do you pick this apart? What is the strategic purpose? Because when things are happening, you don't quite get what's going on. When, say, Russia was sending drones over Europe, you can lapse into, this is the start of the invasion, this is something, this is this is that, but you're sort of dazzled by the headlines. Now I think it's becoming quite clear that those drones over Europe was not just to deter Europe from helping Ukraine, it was to force Europe to stockpile munitions out of fear for their own defense. And now we see the energy war unfolding in Ukraine and destroying their infrastructure. And we see the US withholding stocks as well. And this all comes together to give Russia a strategic advantage over Ukraine, which is trying to dominate. So suddenly, after a couple of months, things are start to make a little bit of sense. I think we need to try and imagine the various reasons why Trump would be doing this for Greenland, because what I imagine you've been discussing is it doesn't benefit the US electorate, doesn't really benefit Trump, doesn't benefit the economy. A lot of people, I think, in MAGA will be wondering and scratching their heads whether, this is a good idea or not. I think a lot of people will. And in fact, we know that some have turned against him because of the strikes on Iran and so on. So who does this benefit? And I think this seems to me perhaps a continuation of Putin's strategy, which is to not just deter Europe, but to dazzle us in the headlights and prevent us from coalescing to support Ukraine. It's a stepping up of a strategy that's already been in play last year.
And listen, Mr. Fink, don't forget that the dropping of the Oreshnik in the Lviv region was a statement. It's the same. It goes for the same. I just wanted to add that to what you were saying earlier.
It ladders up completely to that, doesn't it? Which is
yes,
like,
it does. 100%.
We're scary. We got scary weapons, right? You better hold on to your munitions, and it's working. I think it's working. We can see that from the ability that Russia's had to get through and strike the energy infrastructure. And it's not for want of trying. They've been trying to do this for 4 years. It's not like they've just sat up and thought, well, let's maybe take out the energy infrastructure at this stage in the war. No, they've been trying and haven't been able to do so until now.
I agreed.
I'm just basically cycling through all the very generous.
One of my mods, Trump is propped up by sycophantic morons and the Heritage Foundation. Mark my words.
Yeah.
A lot of it's unfolding right in front of us, Dunk, 100%.
Yeah, and the Heritage Foundation is an interesting one. I rail against them quite frequently. They've become, I think, this very important organization that essentially is running the White House at the moment. But some of them just quit recently and joined former Vice President Pence's is it AAF group. So some of them are so disappointed with how the Heritage Foundation is going at things that some of them have jumped ship and joined Pence's group. So yeah, Rick from the Netherlands, is Trump an evil leader or a useful idiot? Is Trump being played by true powerful people playing his narcissism? Yes, I think that. Could that explain his taco behavior?
All of those.
Yeah, all of those.
Definitely evil as well.
Yeah.
All of the above. And I think Rick had another chat in there where he was talking about how he went to school in New York. I was trying to read them all. Yeah, I love the U.S. Graduated in New York City. Have many U.S. friends. How can Trump still be in power? The U.S. ever did or has the U.S. ever encountered such a danger from within? For me, as an American speaking, I'm 50 in the 50s and not born in the 50s. I was born in the 70s, but 50. I'm 53. Okay, so there you have it. But no, for me in my lifetime, I've no, never, ever. This is off the rails, guys. This is off the rails now. And Jonathan Fink, I was telling Johnny and everyone watching, I'm really pulling for the EU and UK to come back with a ball of fire against this. They must.
They must, but it's the evidence is not good for the track record of this. There seems to be
there's got to be a
normalization
mass at some point. There's got to be a tipping point at some time.
One would hope.
And if it's not this, like honestly, like it's either like maximal economic coercion or it's military invasion, right? And you don't want to let it get to military invasion before you say, that's enough's enough. So it's got to be this. Like this is Europe's last chance saloon to put the foot down and go, you can't keep taking a Mickey here, Donald. You can't keep pushing us. At some point, we're going to say, and I think the reason why they haven't pushed back is yes, economic self-interest, but it's also like Ukraine. Like you don't want to push back against the US because Ukraine's on the table there. So yeah.
Well, this is it, and I think this is.
Prof just made a comment in my chat. Trump has 3 years left. Things will reset in time. Hurts our foreign policy for a decade.
Or a decade, if you're being optimistic. I mean,
optimistic on the decade. I agree with that. Yeah,
we're talking a level of distrust that could well. Now, the only thing I think that would reset that trust, and possibly in less than a decade, would be the impeachment of Donald Trump for this madness. I'm not sure. Now, this is a U.S. domestic question. It's not up to Europe to claim or decide or say this is what you have to do. But I think unless, as you've just said, Europe and the UK push back hard, there may not be the momentum. There may not be the wake-up call in the US to take those important political steps and face the reality. If we carry on appeasing, if we carry on like Mark Rutte is doing still, what a effing disaster that man is, frankly. If we keep appeasing, then I think that will soften the momentum in the US to deal with this or face the reality of it. I think.
Let's.
I disagree on Rutte. I disagree. I think
before we get there, let me go back to the impeachment. It's never going to happen. Okay, he may be impeached, but he will never be removed. So impeachment is just like formal charges. But for him to actually be removed from office, he goes to a Senate trial, and 2/3 have to vote for him to be out. It's never going to happen. So. And if we're waiting for
House of Representatives, who won't get past Senate.
If we're waiting for the midterms to say, well, we can get him impeached after November 2026, and Mr. Fink, what I was sharing with Jonathan Pierce was this, guys, it's January the 17th. If you think you can predict what this world's going to look like in November of 2026, good on you. Good on you. But impeachment, never going to happen. He will
never going to happen.
Impeachment may happen. But removal, not a snowball's chance in Hades. By the way,
that's disturbing, because November, I think, the pattern of chaos that we're seeing is not chaos at all, and it is very much the foundations of something happening to prevent the midterms from going ahead. I think that is quite clear, at least to me.
Well, we shall see. And I don't like chasing conspiracy theories or going down, and not that I'm saying you're giving a conspiracy theory there, Jonathan. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we have no idea what's going to happen. Like, no, we don't. No idea. Not.
We don't.
And
but of course, there's a pattern, and there
is a pattern.
Yeah. And perhaps he doesn't need to suspend the elections at all. I mean, some of the speculation I've seen is that he just has to maybe coerce those states that are likely to be sort of pivotal in swinging the results. So maybe some sort of surgical intervention rather than suspend the whole process. That indeed is more dangerous, because then, he can label the process legitimate, even though it starts to be gerrymandered in certain respects.
Well, then we could open up the can of worms where we start talking about the Insurrection Act, which there is a lot of talk about that happening right now.
I just did a 2-hour live stream on this before my 2-hour live stream now. So this is my
anything can happen. Anything can happen. But I'll tell you what. As far as, because I'm reading in media where people are going, okay, so let's get him impeached. Let's get him impeached, and we just need people to understand. Impeachment's just formal charges. He's been down that road before. He's an expert at it. Okay. But removal, mathematically,
it's difficult to see. Now, Mr. Gerdes has written an interesting comment here, which I think needs to be opened up. He said the institutions in the US run deep. I would ask the question, if that's the case, why have the institutions so far proved to be incapable of holding Trump to account, even on the basis of law? He, to my eyes, seems to have violated numerous laws and conventions and gathered powers to himself that go against traditional practice and indeed the word and letter of the law. So it seems those institutions are not functioning in the way they were designed to do.
Are you saying that I have to invite Prof. Gerdes into this for a four-way, and I'm trying to go to bed?
I told him, I sent him a message. But I think I think
he's on the road or something. But I think that's an interesting
I know he was out earlier, but and he's the one to answer that.
Yeah.
But
can I just answer what I
please? Continue on those.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just when I mentioned Mark Rutte earlier. Just I disagreed with your man Jonathan, because he said Mark Rutte's terrible. Mark Rutte's got one job, and it is keeping NATO together. So, it depends how you understand Mark Rutte. If you are expecting Mark Rutte to stand up amazingly for, I don't know, Europe against the United States, or stand up amazingly for Ukraine, his one job is to stop NATO falling apart. So his
Yes.
one job is to keep Trump somehow inside NATO.
But this is
If
the
you
problem. This is the problem for me, because
the problem is
it's
Trump.
been my
It's not-
belief
it's not Rutte.
that broad NATO, as a broad coalition, has been dead for some time. Now, Mark Rutte is very capable at keeping the impression that it is a functioning alliance together as a zombie institution. That, my argument, is extremely detrimental because it prevents allies from organizing what comes next. It prevents us from facing reality. It prevents us from actually looking at our defense and security requirements and decoupling from the US. So yes, he's doing his job rather too well. What I'm saying is that job itself is highly dangerous.
Well, yeah, I
in the
mean,
times
like
we live in.
yeah, because the issue is you've got an America that both wants Europe to stand up on its own 2 feet, but also wants Europe to buy American weapons, right? So those two things are mutually exclusive.
Those aren't true
right?
anymore. Those aren't true anymore. Those are not true anymore.
What do you mean they're not true?
US does not want Europe to stand on its own 2 feet. We've just sent a token force into Greenland, and apparently sending troops onto our own sovereign territory at the request of allies is the wrong thing to do.
That's
the big lie.
No, it's
He
not
wants
the
to
lie.
weak Europe.
So
He wants to
but
weak
that's
Europe.
not. It depends who you're talking about by he. Like so the reality is here. The problem is that there is all these mutually exclusive issues that originate from Donald Trump's completely schizophrenic international diplomatic worldview, right? So what Mark Rutte has to do is try and keep NATO together while you've got the US being lobbied, well, the Trump administration being lobbied by military industrial complex to keep buying US weapons, while Trump wants to isolate but also militarily expand, which is kind of against NATO because it means going into Greenland and also doing funky stuff over here that NATO probably disagrees with, and all the while needing the US to be a part of that because US is NATO and US bases in Europe are super important for NATO. So, and that you have the Trump administration saying Europe needs to stand up on its own 2 feet, but it still needs to buy loads of American weapons. So none of this makes any sense. And Mark Rutte is left. I mean, I don't give a damn. I'm not supporting Mark Rutte for this. All I'm saying is whoever's in that job has the impossible position of trying to keep NATO together while all of those competing elements are throwing up.
Okay. All right. Let the American get in here for a second. Because I'm loving watching you two guys fight. Disagree. It's beautiful. Listen, Mark Rutte is trying, both of you are right, in my opinion. Mark Rutte is trying to hold NATO together.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he is sometimes like a cheerleader instead of a quarterback. And what I mean by that is he has a position where he could make statements that empower NATO to come together, but he understands that the United States is so important to NATO that I'm not sure he's doing more damage than good, in my opinion. So that's it. I think both of you have valid points because I just pulled up the quotes and I said, okay, give me quotes right now from Rutte on NATO. Quote, I believe Donald Trump is doing the right thing for NATO by encouraging us all to spend more. That's a quote. Okay, fair enough. Congratulations and thank you, President Trump, for your decisive action in Iran. That was truly extraordinary and something no one else dared to do. You are making us all safer. Now, I will just stop there. So you can see what he's trying to do by heaping praise on Trump to try to keep NATO together. But here's the problem. When you do that to Donald Trump, all you do is empower him more. And we just witnessed today NATO fracture because the president of the United States is threatening NATO members with tariffs.
100%.
And we had Stephen Miller himself say, if you can't defend a piece of territory, then it's not really your territory. So what does that mean? We now go to Papua New Guinea and start taking their land?
Yeah, I went through, before you joined, Greg, I went through Stephen Miller's speech there. And I took his pieces. But
we are so far off the rails right now. It's
I fully agree.
Disgusting.
The problem isn't Mark Rutte's. The problem is Donald Trump's, right? And Mark Rutte is left trying to, like, the reality is that you can't have a NATO. You need a new NATO, right? But that's not Mark Rutte's job, right? Mark Rutte's job is to keep the NATO. His job is to keep NATO together, right? So, like, we can slag off Mark Rutte, but he's trying to do the impossible, where what we should want is a NATO without maybe the United States. But then that's only because of Donald Trump. But if a new president came in who was completely different to Donald Trump, then we want the United States back in. And so the problem is the unreliability of the American administration. I wouldn't look at Mark Rutte. Mark Rutte just has an impossible job.
We're in a circus.
I'd go beyond it and say that it's also the responsibility of all of the other members in NATO, because they're not stepping in and saying, okay, Mark Rutte's job is impossible. We need to move on. And the US may or may not come back into the fold. Of course, we hope and really wish it does. But for the moment, we have to move forward realistically. So, yes, Mark Rutte's doing what he should do. And maybe there's some culpability there that he should put his hand up and go, actually, this isn't working and it's not going to work. And I'm going to stop taking a paycheck and I'm going to walk away. That is the role of someone who is a real leader. The real problem is other European leaders, because they should say, this isn't working. Let's give him a new mandate. Let's change course. Let's face reality. They're kicking the can down the road.
While I kind of agree with you, the reality of the situation is if you did that, then Trump would just use that as an excuse to snap more tariffs. Like, the reason why European and British in here, your leaders are so spineless is because everyone's been afraid of Europe, of the United States walking away from Ukraine and the United States punishing European nations economically, right? And so everyone's been walking on eggshells. Like, we don't want to do these things. We know that should be done. But if you do that, then the US goes, wow, I'm going to throw all the toys out the pram and I'm going to help Russia instead. I'm going to release sanctions on Russia.
I think we're beyond the idea
today is big.
Today is huge. I mean, this is
because I think we do get to this point, Jonathan, where you might start seeing European leaders go, and now's the time to walk away.
I think it is. Ooh, there's a cat there. Yes. I think as well, we're beyond the point where certainly Ukraine, but possibly other leaders are thinking we need US on side to keep helping. The fact is they're not helping anymore. And it seems that even the intelligence information is not what it was. The air defense is not being provided. And there's pretty much zero revenue being provided this year in terms of aid. Love that picture. I think what they're doing is what you said at the end there, which is they are playing this game at the moment to prevent Trump from fully flipping, lifting sanctions on Russia and lifting the embargo on certain munitions and components. Because if he gets upset enough, he might just say, do you know what? I'm going to walk away from everything. And actually, I'm going to help Vladimir Putin restock his war chest. I think that's what the game is about at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and
the bottom line is, and the bottom line is this: this has Putin and Xi sitting back, sipping tea, and loving 100%. Every bit of it.
Yeah,
popcorn is popping in the Kremlin right now.
Popcorn is popping in the Kremlin.
I'm just going to really quickly go through some super chats because otherwise I
please
never will
do. Please do.
We owe you to this before Fink came in. We owe you to a lot for keeping us informed. There is, I was sure Jonathan would be included.
It probably would have. The comment wouldn't have changed if I'd been in the room.
Of course, Jonathan. There is just too much going on. Your hard work is keeping an ember of freedom glowing. I feel
thank you.
Like guilty for doing so many videos and live streams, but I was saying to my partner tonight, I was like, Helen, can people stop doing crazy shit in the world? It's just, there's too much going on. It is too much. But
you know what's funny? Let me say something on that, because we've discussed a lot of heavy stuff on this Saturday evening, and thank you all for being here, and thank us again to the mods, and thanks to all those that have super chatted or gifted memberships or liked everything. Thank you. We do our very best, but every morning I wake up, and I am not joking at all. One of the first things that I do is check how many videos Johnny has made before I have my first cup of coffee. That is the truth. That's the gospel truth right there.
Oh dear. Oh my goodness. No tariffs on the US, says Truth is not just social. Only sanctions on Trump business and tech companies make it clear it's about a few people, not the US. Have a bear on me. That is a great point, by the way. And I do appreciate that. And I think I agree with that. Here, as an Indian in the US, as an Indian, the US had one friend in BRICS and they've lost it. Zeb Carter, thank you very much for HEP Geopolitics memberships, and Kevin Force. I've thanked many people, but also haven't thanked loads that I went through very quickly earlier on. So thank you.
That's a cool name. Before Ukraine. Nice.
Yeah.
Nathan Pohl, go back to, hey, buddy. Thank you for that. Greg, you're a great journalist. Thank you for all of your amazing content. You're very welcome, and thank you for your kind comments. And you guys don't realize, I'll just give a little sidebar here, but when you like or share, or you even, we get enough hate mail, honestly, to float a battleship. So when you make nice and kind comments, only when maybe they're deserved, or thank us for the work that we do, it's really encouraging. So thank you. And I know I'm speaking for both Jonathans on that as well.
Michael Fuchard, touch Greenland and lose Alaska. The BC, the British Columbia blockade will be enacted, and as proven in the 1990 Salmon Wars, that is the weak point. You need to take BC before you can touch Greenland. I wonder what Carney's role is going to be in the next couple of weeks, and whether Canada, I mean, they're kind of caught in the middle here. Whilst on the one hand being strong in their rhetoric towards approaching China, are they going to stand up for Greenland against the United States? So it's going to be interesting to watch, Carney.
JP, yes, play that video. This is a perfect time, and then it's just quick. So I found this video. It's a 1945 map. It looks German to me, but take the music off. Take the music off. All right, so take the music off and play it again. And this is a 1945 map, and it shows the reality of the North Pole and Greenland, where there was one base. So they saying it's a 50s German school map showing the real look. So anyway, I'm just throwing it in there because we were just talking about Canada. And you talk about the proximity of Canada
that from above.
Now look at that from above.
That's a really cool perspective.
Yes, and I'm sorry to blow everybody's ears out.
I mean, someone's pointed out, going on about Greenland being pivotal to security. That's actually not true. What's pivotal to security is the area north of the United Kingdom, because that is the main channel where Russian nuclear submarines, etc., go through.
Yes.
So Greenland really is a distraction on every single level. Yes, it's important. Yes, it is important for this new defensive shield. But of course, Trump can have all of that. The US can have all of that. It's part of existing arrangements. No, that's a relationship with the UK and NATO that actually secures that region. And it's those deep waters above the UK that are critical. So what Trump is doing here is dramatically, potentially weakening US security, not strengthening it. So we have to look away from the sort of the weapon of mass distraction, as the former head of NATO has called it. And this is what's kind of going on. He's destroying the alliance. He's weakening Europe. He's softening it up. He's going to be maybe deterring Europe from sending munitions to Ukraine. We're going to be freaking out while Vladimir Putin, one, carries on carving up Ukraine. Two, I fully suspect that with all of this conflict going on, Putin will feel much more confident about launching large-scale hybrid attacks on Europe this year, including on our energy and transport infrastructure, in the knowledge, in the reassurance now that the US will not step in, will not flip to defend Europe. This is where I think it's going. He wants to make sure the US does not make an about turn and become Europe's ally again. He wants to break that relationship fundamentally so he can start softening Europe up politically, economically, and turn it into the basket case so he can tear it apart and dominate it and control it.
I've got a comment from Prof. Gerdes here, and thank you very much for all these super chats. I'm not reading them all out, but yeah, interesting. I presume an American view here to kick the US completely out of EU and tell him, yeah, we're sick of Trump's stupidity. Yep. But this is from Prof. Gerdes, and I kind of disagree with this. I agree with it in some ways, but disagree with it in others. I hate to ruin a thesis here, but Trump is a symptom, not the cause. Yes, to some degree, but he says populism that's running throughout not just the United States but Europe is the real problem. Trump is just a manifestation. Yes and no. So there is this issue of like, well, it's not Trump that caused this, like what voted in Trump, and there's this move towards populism. What is the root cause for Trump getting so popular? Yes, there is that. However, populism is not interested in imperialism in terms of taking on Greenland. Like, so I think that can be explained so far, but actually what's going on here is Trumpism, and it's a form of Trumpism in terms of his ego, in terms of his legacy and wanting to be imperialist and wanting to be an emperor, and also the people around Trump. So it's Stephen Miller and it's the oligarchs around him that propelled him to that position, because they funded him into the position where they can now manipulate him. So I think it's all wrapped up, but I don't think this is just about populism. I think populism has been like a component of this, but actually I'd have to disagree with Darren to a degree there and say there is an element of the actual people involved in ruling at the moment in the United States, and that includes the oligarchs and includes the Heritage Foundation, and there is an agenda there. There's an ideological agenda, and you can talk about Elon Musk and his grandfather with the technate of America, which includes Greenland, it includes Venezuela, it includes Mexico, and it includes Canada. There is an ideology here that goes back beyond just pure populism, and I'm sorry, I agree but also disagree.
I'd also point out here that there's definitely a move towards populism. There's definitely a move towards fragility of democracy, and the center is not holding, and there's multiple things going on. But we also have to remember that Russia is an arsonist, and it's played that role through the Soviet Union. It's played that role less in the 90s because as a state it was incredibly, weak. But under Putin, it has returned to being a global arsonist. So yes, there are all these trends going on, but Russia has undoubtedly injected huge amounts of funds into helping to bankroll or encourage extreme organizations on both the left and the right, because what it wants is division. And we are seeing some of the outline of that in things like Tenet Media. We're seeing some of the outlines of that in places like Nathan Gill, one of Farage's key lieutenants. We're seeing that in Tommy Robinson and others who parrot Kremlin narratives. Now, we don't always have the receipts, but where people are systematically parroting Kremlin narratives rather than, I would say, pure native and organic populism, one can say that actually an accelerant has been used. So it's not true to say that this is just a trend and we should just sort of understand it. It has had fuel poured on the fire.
And we should understand populism. Like, I've read books on populism, and if we don't understand populism, we don't understand how to fight what I would say is a dangerous political movement in terms of, say, in the UK, Reform UK, AfD in Germany, etc., etc. So
Russia didn't invent it, but
I'm going to give you guys. I'm going to give you guys a word picture here, and I learned this from walking with my father through cancer. And he is now cancer-free, 3-time cancer survivor of prostate and lymphoma. And
all cool people in the world have prostate cancer.
He had a very, very bad form of cancer, and he's one of those that have beat it. Okay, so when we met with his cancer doctor, and he was in Oklahoma City at the time. My brother was in California. I was out east, and we got on planes. We flew to Oklahoma. We sat down with one of the best cancer doctors in Oklahoma City there. And the doctor looked at us and says, okay, to the two boys, my brother and I, he goes, I do not want you to look at the internet or Google on this. And I'm getting somewhere on the Trump story here, because this is what I really think, to answer Prof and you two guys. And he started talking to us, and he goes, listen, we're going to beat this cancer, and we're going to beat it through a team effort of my medical expertise and treatment, and for us that believe in God, your faith in God, positive thoughts, good diet, just everything. Okay, we're going to put it all together and we're going to beat it. He goes, but let me explain something to you about cancer. He says, everybody has the potential for cancer. The cells are all there. They're floating around. That populism or that environment is there, but it takes one cell to mutate. That DNA mutates, and it's like a nuclear bomb going off in your body, and then that begins to replicate, and the cancer comes, and then the tumor comes, and then it develops, and then it grows and grows and grows until ultimate death comes. So yeah, is there an underlying movement and thought and culture and process in the United States and around the world? Absolutely. But I'm telling you right now, my opinion, Donald Trump and his leadership style as the president of the United States and the leader of the free world is the mutated cell that has pushed us into this place that we're now in. That's my viewpoint.
I was wondering where that was going, Greg. And you know what? Good job, mate.
Thank you. Listen, he's the cell that explodes. He's the president of the U.S. He is the leader of the free world. He makes one statement and the world shudders.
Like, there are populist leaders around the world.
It's reality.
He's the mutated in a way that says it. Like, there are other populist leaders that are not Trump, and those countries don't do, like, the United States under Trump has taken populism. Populism may have helped get him there, but he is directing the US in a very unique way that is very Trumpian. And I think that you put that together with the ability to be manipulated, or the susceptibility to be manipulated, and with the Heritage Foundation, with Stephen Miller and Russ Vought and JD Vance and Peter Thiel and David Sachs and Elon Musk and all of these people around him, and you have this very big you have this taking populism and thrusting it into a very different place, and yeah. So I think it's both and.
I think your analogy is fantastic. But the one that a lot of people use is the bad apple analogy. But of course, that doesn't really work. What they're implying is that we've got a barrel of lovely apples and there's just one bad one. But if you go back to what that analogy means, is that one bad apple can actually infect the rest. It can turn the whole barrel rotten. That is the original idea behind it. And I think a lot of people miss that. And this is unfortunate, because in any society, and we have this unfortunate, I think, in part of the Brexit language, which is sort of anti-foreigner. That's not to say that everyone who voted for Brexit did so for those reasons. But everyone who's a racist voted for Brexit. But that's the example I heard there. Yeah. But it gives people permission. Like, I had these thoughts and I hadn't really expressed them because I knew that I wouldn't be able to get away with it. But once you start feeling you have impunity, that's not that everyone's going to come out of the woodwork. And the majority of people, I think, are still good or have good intentions wherever they are. But it does give license to those who are like, well, why not? If everyone's being evil, and I rather like being evil, and maybe people don't think of themselves as being evil, but they certainly have the license to express certain things which previously they kept under wraps.
And I think, and I'll just say this, the chat's going by so fast. Once again, thank you to everybody. But I did see somebody's comment go by, and I don't know who wrote it. Was don't forget the revenge factor. And we've even heard references to that. So for us to sit here and try to just analyze this up into one pretty package and one pretty paragraph, I really don't think it's possible. I think this is so complex that there's so many narratives happening at the same time that what we really have is just, we're at January 17th, 2026. You guys are already at the 18th, and we have a perfect storm. And it's not a good storm. It's not a good storm.
And it rhymes with history. I mean, I've said this on the channel before, so excuse, the tedium of hearing this again. My on one side of my family, my grandparents escaped British imperialism in Ireland. On the other side, they escaped Nazi tyranny and fled Austria in the late 30s. And I'm afraid to say the stories that they told me, or at least my grandmother did, because my grandfather didn't really talk about any of it. He's far too traumatized by it. The stories she told the anecdotal stories of what it feels like to be in a society which is turning in on itself, and where violent mobs are forcing the majority of people to keep silent about things they know are evil, and some are embracing that out of self-interest. I'm afraid to say the patterns and the rhymes of history are all around us, and they're getting louder and louder.
Yeah. So you're referring.
So thank you guys. I know it's late your time. So
yeah, I've got to shoot off now. But you were talking about like a subset. I don't know what the correct logical labeling for this is, but it's a kind of subset fallacy where all A is B, but not all B are A. All dogs are animals, but not all animals are dogs. Which is to say that all racists voted for Brexit, but not all Brexit voters are racist. So it's a subset fallacy. Yeah.
It's a meme kind of thing which goes around, but there's a little kernel of perhaps truth in there.
Please don't forget that my wife painted this.
No way. Oh wow. Is that special curse on cat? Or similar?
Yes, sir.
That's amazing. She's good. That's brilliant. Love it. Different colored eyes. Well.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. Can I just, as the last super chat,
please get them all, because I hate missing super chats and thank yous, and because if not, it'd just be us three talking together, and that'd be quite boring. So thank you, everybody.
Stephen Leach here saying, and he's one of yours. Stephen Leach saying, "Thank you, gentlemen. This is my first live, but I watch everything all three of you put out." Florida veteran here. Thank you. That's really kind of you for
sir.
to hang out, and
thank you, Paul Paul Deberitz. I saw that comment. Thank you.
So just two more super chats. Sorry to all those I didn't read out, but I did flash them on the screen. Rick from the Netherlands, US two-party system makes populism dangerous. In the Netherlands, even when the PVV was the biggest party, could not get the upper hand. But now how the PVV got the biggest party is important to look at. Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you actually had a three-party system or multi-party system, then you can deal with populism. But if populism takes over one party, then the two-party system in the US is the narrowest form of democracy. It is a poor democracy in the US. It's a first past the post electoral college system, a two-party system. It needs reform, desperately needs reform, the American political system. Just really quickly,
thank you, BB.
Yep, absolutely.
All the gifted the memberships. Thank you, Blonde Bomb Scheller. Thank you to all the mods, man. We've all got great mods. Thank you.
Thank you to Andrew Eisen there. Trump may have started out as a populist, but he's heading to authoritarian. Yep, absolutely, and they're not mutually exclusive. Putin puppet every day. The clan Rutter wins. EU, NATO rearms. Real nice. Thank you, Putin puppet. Sorry to rush through these. And what Fink just said is something I want to share with many. That's the first time I've ever heard that kind of sentiment, but I appreciate that, JJ. Like it is not often I hear that kind of agreement and advocacy for Jonathan Fink. So thank you. I'm sure he'll feel his cockles are warmed.
My head will swell to ridiculous proportions.
Indeed.
Well, all I know is that if I'm trying to learn your guys' lingo over there, both of you are the dog's bollocks. That's all I know to say.
So the DBs.
I love
DBs. Thank you.
I occasionally watch these like Americans in Britain and experiencing UK culture and blah blah blah. I watch them on YouTube, and there's one I watched today. He like went to a curry house and was like, "This is the best food I've ever eaten. This has changed my life." And this is an American guy, and he's like, "And you've got to go to this curry house in Long Crennenden or something. So this village in the UK. It's like this is the best curry house in the world. My life has been changed." At the end of the video, and I thought of you, Greg. At the end of the video, he said, and he's obviously like hung out with Brits and getting the lingo, and he's like, "This restaurant is a dog's bollocks." And I was like, Greg, you're here with me, Greg. I'm watching YouTube.
I'm learning a little bit at a time from you fellas. I really appreciate you guys. You know, we don't see everything the same, but we don't, and that's okay. But this is how it's supposed to be. Not throwing threats and rhetoric. We're supposed to come together, discuss it, and try to find common ground. So I do appreciate you fellas very much, and everybody. Thank you.
I don't want to overwhelm you with lingo as well, but there's an alternative version of that, which is the mutts nuts.
Yeah,
the mutts nuts. So
yeah,
okay.
If you want to be a bit more polite, a bit, maybe.
So
is it more polite or is it less? I kind of think.
I don't know. Bollocks is a quasi swear word, but it's not.
Well,
then
this is very simple. Then, okay, definitely Fink is the dog's bollocks, and Pierce, you're definitely the mutts nuts.
Yeah, I like to think I am.
There we go. I've got it now.
Well, thank you.
You
Yeah,
got it.
thank
You
you.
got the link.
No more Brits can join the stream. I'm out of slang.
Yeah, that's it. And just a point to many Americans make this mistake. I think someone's just said it. So Blonde Bombsheller, right, says, so this is a classic American mistake. It's not bullocks, which is a male cow, isn't it? A bullock. It's bollock. So it's BOLLOCK. It's a very common American misunderstanding of the word.
She will never make that mistake again.
So thank you for, this is the correct spelling from Who's Poppin'. That is the words. Indeed. Sweet as a nut. Right. Look, guys.
Thank you, guys.
It's autocorrect. Says Blonde Bombsheller. Yes, this is it. Thank you to all of the mods, Blonde Bombsheller being one of the great ones. Thank you to all the people in the live chat. Thank you to all of the tremendous support for the channels. Thanks for Prof. Gerdes for hanging out.
Yes, thank you, Prof, for chatting with us.
And I did send him a link, but he didn't look at his WhatsApp, so I take that as in just not wanting to join in the conversation.
He was out somewhere.
It's no
doing
excuse.
Something. I know it's no excuse, but
he should be. If he's in a restaurant, he needs to take himself to the toilet, sit down, put his phone on, and join us from the cubicle. Like, there's no excuse. So next time, Greg. Next time, Darren.
Wait. Then that would be called the Lou Review.
Very good.
Thank you.
You are a poet.
I'm working on.
You didn't even know it.
No, the Lou Review.
Jonathan says, Jeff Test Pilot, as I already said, I would be proud to serve in the trenches with all of you guys. That's really very kind of you. Chance of me serving in the trenches unless I'm put on an unmanned ground vehicle in some kind of automated movement system.
Bull crap, JP. I've had you in Kherson falling down steps, caught you, and made sure you got up the steps. No, sir. You are legit. Jonathan Fink is legit. You put your money where your mouth is, and you take your butts to Ukraine. I salute both of you guys.
Hoping to go out in the Easter time, mate. But I've got a walker now, so I've got this 4-wheeled walker that I walk around, because for those who don't know, I've got multiple sclerosis. I may look pretty good from the upper body like this. I'm very mobile. Look at me. I can move my upper body, my arms. They're amazing. You get me walking. I'm drunk, right? I'm like a drunk man, and I can't run. I haven't run in about 7 years.
Telling the truth. We were in the snow over Izum, and I'm walking out to show him Izum in the Donetsk, Kharkiv region, Kharkiv region, Izum, and we come out, and next thing I know, man, he's like falling on me. I said, "What are you doing?" He's dancing in the snow. But you there, man, both of you guys. So,
but next time I go, I'm going to have to take my new walker with me, which is great because I roll it along. I went to watch my boys' football today, and I rolled it along, walked across the fields. I was like, "Yeah, look at me walk! I'm really quick. I'm amazing." So I've got these wheels that I can lean on, and then I can turn it around. I can sit on it, and then so I'm made up. So my life is now better.
Awesome.
Anyway,
super cool.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. The pleasure is all yours.
Thank you.
I mean, I've enjoyed it too. Last sort of words for the audience in these crazy times.
It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I think that's one takeaway. I
would say I concur with that statement, and I just like to always end by saying thank you to you two guys. Thank you to all people watching on all 3 channels. Thank you for supporting, of course, so many of you here supporting Ukraine, but just supporting the hunt for truth and what is right, and realizing nobody knows all the answers, but together we can come together and find them and encourage each other in this world, no matter what corner of it you are from. So for that, we say thank you, and don't quit fighting and standing for what's right. If you are an American, write to your congressmen, to your senators, flood them, do anything you can do. But thank you so much.
Basically what he said. So on that, I'll finish. But thank you to all of you. You're amazing. Take care, and I will be in touch with you with my videos tomorrow. I'm sure Greg will and Jonathan will be as well, because that's how we roll.
Yes.
Take care, everybody. You two stay in the green room. Slava Ukraini, and may
Slava.
May the United may the United States find its way again through to an enlightened sense of togetherness with allies rather than division and divergence. So that's all I have to say.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
There we go, JP. I was waiting for it. We're going to sing "Oh Happy Day" in a minute.
No, we're not. Take care, y'all. Big love.
Good night.